An entitled customer demands that we match the price for our product for a promotional deal at another store that literally expired 6 months ago. And honestly, I'm so done dealing with customers like this because they are simply exhausting and they don't know when to quit. Here's what happened. Okay, to set the scene, it was a quieter night, the busy rush was over, and we only had a couple of hours before closing. Most of the shoppers at this time were like the last second late night people who were grabbing stuff, and it was honestly nothing too bothersome if I'm being completely honest. But unfortunately, that piece came to a screeching halt when a cashier asked me to check the price of a product. It was a huge multi-pack of Dr. Pepper. They came up to me and said, "Hey, could you just check the price on this one? The customer's arguing that it should be $12, but the register says that it's $15. He says he has a photo of the price." So I go to check the price on the product and no, it's not $12. In fact, there's not a single ticket for anything that's $12 in the whole aisle, let alone on the same shelf. I say to the cashier, "No, it's not $12, it's 100% $15. And the cashier said, "Okay, I'll let him know." Well, after maybe just a moment, my cashier says to me, "Could you please come down? He'd like to speak to a manager. He's got a picture on his phone and he wants to show you." And I overheard this on the headset in a beaten voice. Now, I knew exactly the sort of customer I was going to be dealing with at that moment, and I told the cashier I'd be down in just a second. When I got down there, the cashier pointed me to the customer. So I put on the old tried and true retail smile, and I said to them, "Hello there, how can I help you?" And I said that mentally prepping myself for the oncoming conflict. The man in his late 50s, possibly even early 60s, didn't say a word back to me. He didn't look at me in the eye, and instead he thrust his phone into my face. He then held it there, arms straight and proud, as if he were Van Helsing and I were Dracula, and the phone that he held out in front of him was a golden crucifix that would turn me into ash. I looked at the image that he showed me on his phone, and it was a screenshot from a Facebook page that was itself a screenshot from a Google search showing a price for the same product for the aforementioned $12, but at an entirely different supermarket 6 months ago. I looked at the image he showed me proudly, as if it were an image of God itself, and I knew there was no point arguing with this person. I've worked in retail well over a decade now. I have had these arguments before with these same sorts of people, and I've come to realize two truths about such people. For one, they have time, but I do not. They will argue long after you easily point out their obvious mistake, and even still, they'll continue to argue, for they are immune to logic and are angered whenever you try to use it. Whereas for me, I have jobs that need doing, staff that will want to go home on time. The longer I spend arguing with people like this, is longer I might have to ask people to stop after closing so we can finish what jobs need doing that night. Secondly, something I learned much later is that these people are honestly lonely. They are tiresome, draining, no one wants to be around them. They're talking and complaining to you, the retailer worker, and this might just be this person's only in-person social interaction. Oh, I'm sure they have plenty of Facebook friends who back up their beliefs or views, but no one in the real world ever wants to deal with them. And so they pick stupid fights just so they have a reason to talk to another human being for a longer period of time. And so with all that in mind, as I looked at the image he showed me, I sighed internally and I simply said, "Wow, that's a pretty good price." He then declared with an air of victory in his voice, "Oh, I know. It's cheaper and I would have thought that you would match it." I then responded by saying, "No, we can't. I can give you a refund though. As I see you've already bought the item already, I'll refund you and you can go buy that one. Would you be okay with that?" He then said to me, "Yes, I think I'll have the refund at that price." And he again held his phone in front of my face with the same outdated offer from another retailer. I glanced at it and I just said, "Well, if I were you, I would get that offer. It's better than what we charge." I then did his refund as quickly as possible. "Now, is there anything else I can help you with today?" He then looked at me and said, "Nope, I think I'm good, thank you." And he said this as though he had just won some imaginary war. I then just quickly nodded to him and then I left. He didn't bother any more staff after that, and then shortly after that left the store. Now again, younger me would have fought him on this. I would have pointed out the date, the fact that it's another store, and I would have gone back and forth with him. But these days though, I feel I understand the benefit of simply getting such a person out the door as quickly as possible. I don't want to feel as though I've won anymore. I just want to get the job done and get my staff out on time so they can go home to their loved ones. Because after all, that's what's really important in this situation. Okay, I just want to say that all the times I've ever worked retail, I really wish I had someone like the original poster as a manager because good lord, you've got this down to a science. You didn't even bother arguing with this guy. You just said, "Oh, that's a sweet deal. Okay, I'm gonna give you a refund now." Like, that's amazing in my opinion. Like, you read that situation perfectly. I love that because you're so right across the board. They're lonely people that, my God, you just don't want to argue with. They'll stick around for like 40 minutes to be like, "No, I'm right and you're wrong," even though they're definitely wrong, like 100% wrong. And man, have I fallen for that temptation so many times. I've argued with so many patients or customers, like it is nauseating because the end result is always them being pissed off and me somehow being the enemy here, even though I'm in the right. It's like, dude, what are we talking about here? So yeah, if you work retail and you've ever experienced this, then I'm sure you know exactly where the original poster is coming from, because props to them. They clearly had this figured out. And honestly, I wish I had someone like that as a manager back in the day, because that would have made life a lot easier. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents repeatedly told me throughout my entire childhood that if I ever bought myself my own car, it would be the dumbest thing I could possibly ever do. But now that I'm an adult without a car, I'm honestly feeling lost, as the goalposts of this stupid argument has changed completely, putting me in a situation where I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I don't know who's in the wrong here, but when I started making decent money in my part-time jobs from the age of 18 to 20, I always had a desire to buy my own car. All my friends had one, and I was sick of having to take the bus everywhere. I thought the idea up with my mom and dad, who both told me with smug laughs and quite condescendingly that buying a car would be insanely stupid and that I'm basically paying to keep it in the garage, while also saying that I apparently don't need one because I don't have a full-time job and that people only use cars to drive to work and nothing else. At least that's what it felt like they were implying. So, being a naive and obedient child, I listened and completely scrapped my wishes of buying a car. Instead, I spent all my money on useless garbage, video games, phones, food, basically all things I could have lived without, because I felt like there was no point in keeping all my savings. Funnily enough, my parents never said a word about my spending habits with all of these things, but for whatever reason, buying a car is like the worst thing in the world for them. Anyways, fast forward to now, I'm 21 years old and I'm sort of broke, and I'm needing to drive way more often. Sometimes it's for work opportunities, but sometimes it's for shopping, and most recently for a date I was planning to go on tomorrow. I asked my dad today if I could drive the car tomorrow, as I want to take said date out, and lo and behold, my dad needs the car for something else. Now that's absolutely no worries with me, fully understandable as he needs it for work, but then he pulls me aside and asks why I'm using the car so often, and also telling me that I should stop asking to use it so often, as apparently it's his pride and joy, and he doesn't want to get it damaged. And now I'm insanely confused, because basically all throughout my formative teenage and early adulthood years, he and my mom kept telling me not to buy my own car. Basically anything else I did with my money was okay, but a car was the absolute final straw, and it made me feel like I was insanely stupid for wanting to buy my own car. I don't want to blame my parents for my money spending issues, as I have to accept some responsibility for my own actions at some point, but it definitely feels like a domino effect in some ways. I would argue that learning to control my finances while owning a car would have put me in a better and more educated financial position now. I don't know what I'm hoping to achieve by posting this here. It's mostly just a rant, I guess, but I also wanted to see if anyone else has ever had a similar experience with their parents, because right now I'm quite pissed off and I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think you definitely made a mistake by not saving your money. Because yeah, it was kind of stupid to just spend it on stuff you don't need. Especially if some of it is left over and it's like, oh yeah, I could reasonably take this money and save it for a rainy day. But on the other hand, your parents being like, no, you don't want a car. That's the dumbest decision you'll ever want. That is them not only being incredibly stupid, but also very manipulative. Do they want you to live at home for the rest of your life? How on earth are you supposed to get around without borrowing their car? Their logic is so flawed. You're 21 years old. Of course you're gonna have places to go. What are they thinking? Why would they not be like, oh yeah, save up for a car and one day you'll get it? Because if they had said that, at least you could have been like, oh, okay, I'll save up and I'll buy a car and I'll be independent and do my own thing. But from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like your parents want that. They don't want you to be independent. They want you to be reliant on them, and that sounds really messed up. So yeah, I would be very pissed off about this, but also I would start saving like crazy. Your parents obviously don't have your best interest in mind, and maybe it's time to take matters into your own hands. My entitled employers stole time from us every single shift, so we all got revenge by literally stealing time back by not even doing our jobs half the week that we were there. And honestly, I don't feel bad about it at all because this guy really sucked. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my job had us working 10.5-hour shifts, but we only ever got paid for 10 of those hours. The boss took off 30 minutes for our lunch breaks. However, we were required to work during lunch. He forced us to answer calls and wait on customers during our unpaid lunch, but this is illegal illegal. He must have saved like over $100,000 on payroll in the 5 years that I worked there doing this. Anyways, when I became a shift manager, I made sure that we took 2-hour lunch breaks, an hour break in the morning and an hour break in the afternoon. And on slow days, we would stand around doing nothing for hours at a time, all while the job was being done, mind you. The owner never found out as he never worked alongside of us, and he would drop in on Fridays to pay the bills and occasionally call us to check in on things. In the last year alone, I would sit in the break room on my phone for hours at a time, only answering calls and talking to customers as they came in. In fact, I think in the last year, 15 out of the 40 hours a week were spent doing absolutely nothing. I bet overall I must have racked up over like 2,000 hours doing absolutely nothing in a 4-year period. I always showed up on time, stayed late if needed, and made sure the job was done correctly and always treated the customers with respect. Anyways, he promised me health insurance when I turned 26, but when it came time to do it, he mysteriously just couldn't afford it, so I ended up leaving. The next job I worked at, a hospital billing department, we had our work queue laid out on our screen every morning. And you know what? I would shred through the queue in the morning and then sit on my butt for the rest of the shift, which goes to show you that I carry these lessons with me wherever I go. Holy crap, this is so true, it's not even funny. You work an office job or some other mundane crap, and you literally sit there and do nothing for so long. Like, so much of your work time is just a complete waste of time. And this guy literally has like 15 out of 40 hours where he's just like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and do nothing now. That's like almost half the week sitting there twiddling your thumbs thinking to yourself, okay, what do I do now? So I don't know about you, but I honestly love the way the original poster handled this, and I love that they basically worked the system in their favor. Because if my boss is gonna force me to do nothing, then congratulations. I will absolutely get paid to do nothing and enjoy the process the entire way. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she cannot leave her kid with me every time she wants alone time? Because after I told her exactly how I feel, she basically has started giving me the cold shoulder. And at this point, I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Here's how it all went down. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I adore my friend, but she has developed a habit of dropping her kid off at my apartment with almost no warning. At first, it was once a month and I was happy to help out, but then she started doing it once a week. And now it's almost every other day. She will show up at my door and say that she needs a break and that her kid loves spending time with me. I work from home, so I cannot always entertain a child for hours, and I told her this as gently as I could several times. But she would always say that she owed me one, but never actually changed anything. Last week, she showed up again, and I told her directly that I could not babysit without notice and that I'm not available by default. She then got upset and said that I should be happy to help her because her child sees me as family. I then told her that being family does not mean replacing childcare, that she should be arranging herself. She then left in a rush and later sent a message saying that I had changed into someone that she no longer recognized. She's not contacted me since, and I honestly feel a little bit guilty, but also kind of relieved. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because honestly, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, the second anybody starts dropping their kid off at my apartment, that's the second I'm no longer friends with them and I'm absolutely gonna start turning them away. Like, dude, you can't just do that and expect me to be okay with it. You're also taking advantage of me and that is really obnoxious. So no, you're not the jerk for telling your friend exactly how you feel. They were obviously expecting you to just kind of like lay down and take it, and that's not fair for anybody. Because at that point, you're no longer in a friendship, and if anything, they probably see you as a babysitter. Am I the jerk for defending my adopted sisters and for upsetting my girlfriend after we had an argument about them? Because right now, things have gotten really weird between the two of us, and now I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. So when I was 16 years old, my family adopted 3 girls from my high school. Their mom had passed away, they had no other family, and they were about to be taken by Child Protective Services. I was close with one of them, and I saw firsthand the stuff they went through, including substance issues and older men taking advantage of them. My parents helped them with everything: school, college, cars, apartments. They truly treated them like family. Now, we are all in our late 20s, and the sisters have mostly drifted away. They rarely visit or reach out, and my mom is hurt and honestly feels used. I think it's sad, but I also understand it. They never asked for a new family. They were thrown into ours during a traumatic time, and now that they're adults, they want space. And I just don't think kindness should require a perfect return. My girlfriend is close with my mom and has absorbed her frustration. She dislikes the sisters even though she has only met them twice. Today, her employer mentioned knowing the sisters in high school and said that they were rude. But I said that 2 of them had that reputation, but the 3rd was well liked, and that was it. My girlfriend then immediately asked why I always defend them, why I'm so protective, and why I just can't admit they're being ungrateful. When I tried to explain that I saw what they lived through, she just mocked me. She said to me, "Oh, boo-hoo, do you have to protect them? Are you in love with them?" And that accusation really bothered me. I'm not in love with any of them, and the fact that she jumped to that made me feel ridiculous for even trying to be understanding. It also also feels like she enjoys hearing negative things about them, which makes no sense given how little she knows them. The argument lasted all day and then it escalated, and I ended up calling her insecure, crazy, pathetic, among other hurtful things, which I honestly regret, but I seriously felt like she was gaslighting me. And now she says that I'm ruining our relationship because I'm defending a sister that I'm in love with. And honestly, I just don't know how we got here. I'm not obsessed with the sisters. I just don't blame them for distancing themselves. And I don't think that what my family did for them means they owe us lifelong loyalty. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because this is honestly frustrating and I just don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is seriously something where your girlfriend is completely out of her depth. She's quite literally talking out of her rear end, like seriously. She keeps trying to move the goalposts and be like, oh, you're defending them? You must have a crush on them. When in reality, you know exactly what they went through. You saw firsthand what they went through and it's like, dude, you have empathy for their situation. And your girlfriend, for whatever reason, is trying to be like, oh no, I'm gonna tear that down. I'm gonna make you the bad guy just because I don't want to be wrong. Or just because she doesn't want to lose the argument. But it's like, dude, there's no argument here. The adopted sisters are adults. They can do whatever they want. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is such a weird hill to die on, and in my opinion, it just doesn't seem worth it. Am I the jerk for refusing to be my brother's live-in maid after he dropped out of college to make himself the man of the house after our dad passed away? Because right now he's being a massive jerk, and honestly at this point I'm kind of done with it. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, my dad passed away a few years ago, and ever since then my brother has decided he is the man of the house. He dropped out of college, and if I'm being completely honest, I don't think he was going to graduate anyways because he's not very smart. He works in construction and he does help with some bills, and he fixes our cars and small things around the house. I appreciate that, but he acts like doing these things every few months gives him the right to like boss me around every single day and order me to do all the everyday chores. When I came home from my lectures, I saw him fixing one of the cabinets. The first thing he said to me was, "The sink is full. Why did you not do the dishes? It's been like that for like 2 days now." And I told him, I always do my dishes. Those are literally yours and mom's. I am not your maid. He then started guilt tripping me and trying to emotionally manipulate me as he said to me, "I just came home from a 13-hour day. And the first thing I did was fix this broken piece of junk. Mom works 6 days a week. The least you could do is clean the house and do the dishes. I'm not even asking you to cook or do laundry. You are a leech." Well, I responded back by saying, I just came home from 3 lectures and a lab. I have to study for my final exams next week. I do not have time right now to be your maid. He replied by saying, "Typical females of this generation. I'll do the dishes and fix this. Go to the mechanic next time. Do not come to me ever again." But I just ignored him when he said this and I went right to my room. A few minutes later, he sent me a bank transfer request for $600 with a note on it that said brake and oil change and parts and labor. For context, I'm a third of the household and I do 1/3 of the chores. I clean the kitchen and bathroom 2 or 3 times a week, meaning that I do my share. But he acts like it's never enough. I'm also a nursing major, so I spend a lot of time studying, meaning that he dropped out of college and uses our dad's passing as an excuse for everything. He was majoring in business, and nothing he claims to do around the house is something he does often. He does those things every few weeks, months, or even years, but he still expects me to clean every day like it's my full-time job. Also, my mom rarely defends me and treats him like an angel, and I'm honestly exhausted. As soon as I finish my degree and can afford it, I am moving out because I simply cannot take this any longer. Okay, this is really weird in my opinion. There's no excuse for that. If you're living in a house with people, whether they're family or roommates, then you clean up your mess. Like, what's going on right now? How is it solely your responsibility to clean up everybody else's mess? That sounds incredibly lopsided and completely unfair. And I don't know about you, but your brother sounds like he's really sexist by being like, "Oh yeah, typical females of this generation." It's like, my God, he knows he's talking to his sister, right? She's not some deadbeat who's not doing anything with her life. She's going to school to become a nurse. Like, that is such a hard degree. And I know that because I have family members who are nurses, and holy crap, they went through a lot of schooling for that. So no, you're not the jerk here. Your brother's an idiot. You're definitely not his maid, and you have no obligation to clean that house 24/7. Because if he's gonna make a mess, then congratulations, he can clean it up himself. Because that's what responsible adults do instead of just trying to blame everybody else and force your siblings to do it for you. Am I the jerk for walking out of my best friend's wedding after what she said to me that truly offended me? Because right now, I kind of think I messed up, and at this point, I don't know what else to do. Here's what's going on. So I have known my best friend, who I will call Mary, ever since we were 12. We grew up together, we shared everything, and even when adult life made things busy, we still stayed close. When she got engaged last year, I was genuinely thrilled for her. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, and I happily said yes. The months leading up to the wedding were really rough though. Mary became more stressed and snappy, but I tried to brush it off as normal wedding pressure. There were little comments here and there about my weight, my hair, my job, just subtle digs that felt unnecessary, but I let them go because I wanted her day to be perfect. On the morning of the wedding, things finally escalated. While we were getting ready, she suddenly told me to stand at the very end of the lineup because I would ruin the photos if I was near the center. And she said it in front of the entire wedding party. Everybody froze and I was humiliated. I tried to laugh it off, but it really stung deeply. Later, right before the ceremony, she pulled me aside and told me that I needed to suck in my stomach and angle my face so that I would look less tired. She said she didn't want me to look like the before picture in a makeover ad next to her. And at this point, I felt myself shut down. That was not stress, that was just cruelty. I told her calmly that I was hurt, but she rolled her eyes and said I always made things about myself. And at this point, something snapped in me. After years of friendship, after everything we had been through, I could not believe she was treating me this way on a day that was supposed to be about love. So I walked out. I didn't make a scene. I simply handed my bouquet to one of the other bridesmaids and I left quietly. And I drove home shaking. After the ceremony, Mary blew up my phone with messages calling me selfish, immature, jealous, and dramatic. And some of our mutual friends say that I should have just endured it for the sake of the wedding, while others are saying that her behavior was unacceptable and walking out was the only boundary I could have set in the moment. But seriously, I still feel awful. I never wanted to ruin anything, but I also feel like a friend should never treat me that way in the first place. So here I am, wondering if I really am the jerk for walking out of my best friend's wedding, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, and this really is just my opinion, I really think you probably should have waited until the wedding was over. Like, I totally understand she's being rude and she's saying nasty stuff, but from my perspective, I think it would have been better to leave after the wedding itself and not even go to the reception or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, you were completely justified in walking out. If someone talked to me like that, I would probably be like, okay, I am not sticking around. But I think in this instance, it probably would have been better to stay at the wedding and just deal with it, and then choose to cut her off and be like, oh yeah, you're toxic and I hate you. But seriously, what do you think? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. My entitled friends have been speaking badly about me behind my back, as they have mocked my pictures that I post on Instagram, constantly making fun of my appearance and the way that I look. But after I uncover the truth by going through one of their phones, they try to turn this all around on me by saying that I invaded their privacy. And now, as a result, I am at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have two friends that we will call Gabby and Shelly, and no, those are not their real names. All of us are 23, and we were roommates in college and stayed in the same city after graduation. While the three of us are close, I've always known that Gabby and Shelly are the closest, and they really have a sweet friendship. Shelly is getting married, and Gabby is the maid of honor, and I'm one of the bridesmaids. Over the weekend, I went with Shelly so she could look at a wedding dress. Gabby was supposed to come with us, but got called into work at the last minute. I helped Shelly pick out some dresses, then she went with a consultant to try them on. Shelly then asked that I take pictures and videos on her phone to send to her mom and Gabby, and as I was getting the camera ready, a text message from Gabby came through on the phone. Now, I did not mean to click on it, and I was going to instantly click back out, all the way up until I saw one of my Instagram pictures in their private chat from earlier that morning. Both of them were making fun of me for the face I was making and my outfit of choice, and it didn't seem like this was in good nature. Now, I will admit, curiosity got the best of me, so I searched my name in the chat. And when I did that, I found multiple pictures that I, my boyfriend, or my mom have posted of myself, absolutely ripping them to shreds, ranging from selfies to pose shots to even a few baby pictures. They'd also make fun of me in general in terms of the way that I talked, the way I wore my hair, and the way that I ate. This went back, as far as I could tell, at least a year. Well, when I saw that, my heart absolutely broke. It felt so juvenile in high school. While we all joke around, I would never do this to them, nor have they ever tried to instigate these types of conversations with me about the other one-on-one. When all was said and done, I was in tears. As someone who was bullied all through middle and high school, it just brought me back to a horrible place. I put the phone in Shelly's purse, and I brought it to another employee, telling her to tell Shelly that I had to go. I then drove home and I had a long cry. Shelly texted me by the time I made it home, asking me where I went. I said I was going home and we could talk talk later. When she did call a few hours later, she was understandably confused and hurt that I left. I then told her what I found, and I explained that I only looked further because of the initial text that I accidentally saw. Well, when I said that, she went off on me for looking through her private text messages and said those were none of my business. She also told me that I shouldn't have left the store without saying anything. I said I didn't want to make a scene, but also I knew I couldn't fake being happy for her. Shelly then told me that all the text messages were all in good fun, and clearly she loves me because I'm going to be her bridesmaid. She added that I'm only hurt because I chose to read all those text messages, and later on, Gabby called to tell me that I invaded Shelly's privacy and I hurt her by walking out. My boyfriend and my mom think that I did the right thing by walking out, but obviously they are a little biased. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for looking through those text messages and then leaving? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk in this scenario. Your friends are absolute garbage. Here's the thing about Shelly and Gabby. It's only in good fun now that you found out about it. Like before you found out about it, it was funny at your expense. But now they're trying to make it seem like, oh, come on, we were laughing with you, not at you. And that is absolute garbage. You know the context of those text messages. You know that they were making fun of you behind your back, and they were absolutely trying to tear you down limb from limb. Like, why else would they send all these photos exclusively to the two of them while also making horrible comments about these photos? Like, that is so toxic, it's not even funny. And also, just look at the way she reacted when you called her out. When you said, hey, I saw what you said about me and I don't appreciate that. She suddenly got super defensive and was like, oh my god, you invaded my privacy. But she's completely missing the point of the entire conversation. The both of them have been speaking poorly about you behind their back, and they've treated you like garbage while you thought you were good friends with these people. And that's probably the worst part about it that would drive me insane. Like, if someone's gonna be my friend, they better show up for me when it counts, because you had every intention of being a bridesmaid at her wedding. But now you're finding out that maybe that friendship wasn't nearly as deep as you thought, which is so devastating, and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. So no, not only are you not the jerk for walking out, but I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would even want to stay in that wedding, because Gabby and Shelly sound absolutely toxic, and you can definitely find better friends than that in the future. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen on Facebook claims that she's gonna sue me after I share a photograph that she doesn't like in our Facebook group. And right now, I am absolutely blown away by this Karen's entitlement. Here's what happened. So I never thought I would ever share a story of my own about an entitled person, but apparently the fates have decreed otherwise, because last week, I too was blessed to be in the presence of an entitled Karen. Now, I met this Karen about a year ago. Some friends and I were setting up a public exhibition, and I had volunteered to be one of the tour guides to explain said exhibition to potential museum visitors and guide them through the photographs, antiques, and other things that made up our display. One day, a friend texted me if I was free that Friday to do a meet and greet with a group of people who were coming in to see the exhibit, and I decided to say yes. And wouldn't you guess it, among that group was the entitled Karen. Now, I did not at the time have any inkling of how bad this would get, but trust me, it goes south rather quickly. Fast forward about 6 months, and in the short time that I've known her, a few things have become painfully obvious about this Karen. She absolutely loves to talk about her family, her relatives, who she's related to, how she's related to them, as well as how much they earn and how much they're worth, as well as everything about her friends and how much money they make. The words millionaire and billionaire pop up so often, you would think that she was reading the Forbes list, and she would literally talk about them for ages. What should be a 5-minute phone call would turn into a 30-minute lecture about how well connected she is. For the most part, she was generally civil. She invited me out to meals with her friends, she asked me to tell them about myself, and as always, again for some reason, with heavy emphasis on family history and connections and occupations and jobs and all that other stuff. By now, I had just accepted that she was just weird and eccentric, but whatever. It takes all types, as they say, and I assumed that was honestly it. Now, something to know about the two of us is that we're both members of a local club. This club is a cultural club dedicated to the promotion and preservation of our shared ethnic heritage. There's the main club, and then there's the smaller youth group within the main club. Now, said youth group is run by a friend, and we have a Facebook group, and in this group we share videos, recipes, photos of food, as well as photos of family, friends, and events that we went to, to. Or maybe we talk about stuff that we've hosted or participated in, and occasionally we share historical stuff related to our culture. And that includes photographs, antiques, family heirlooms, and stuff like that. Now, the reason for all of this background information is literally because of what happened about a week ago inside this group. I had written a Facebook post about similar such organizations as our club and a bit about their history and how they were formed. For visual interest, I had added a photograph into the post, which was the first ever formation of a club like this, which was well over 100 years ago. I posted it in one group on Facebook and then shared it into the youth group's Facebook group as well, and then I just left it. Well, in a matter of a couple of hours, the entitled Karen was attacking me on Facebook. She was demanding to know which members of this photograph are my ancestors, as well as which ones are my relatives or which ones are my family. I told her that none of them are, and that it's just a historical photo in the public domain. It was relevant to what I was writing, and it was relevant to the group. I shared it, and honestly, that was the end of the story. But no, that's not good enough. She immediately demanded to know by what right I shared this photograph, whether I'd ask anybody's permission, and why I hadn't contacted the descendants of the people in the photograph, which by the way was well over 100 years ago. I told her I had no idea how to do that, even if I did have their names. Well, when I said that, she got furious and demanded that I contact these people, even though I don't know how, and ask their permission, or she would and get me sued. She was also furious that I dared to share the photo in another group, which wasn't about our club or culture or our heritage, and that I have no right to do so. And I'm thinking to myself, that's my Facebook group. You don't have any right to tell me what I can or can't share in my own group. You don't get to dictate how I use my social media account. But no, still not good enough. She went on a diatribe that lasted 2 days, and a messenger diatribe that lasted at least 2 hours. She's now saying that she's gonna send emails and screenshots to some people who she says are super rich and super influential, and she knows them really well, so she says they're gonna sue me. So after having just about enough of this, I reported her to our group admin, who is my friend, who then reported her to the club committee, citing that she was bothering me as the reason for the complaint. The committee is currently in conference about this and other incidents surrounding this entitled Karen. That way they can decide what to do with her, which is seriously long overdue. According to my friend, this entitled Karen has made loads of enemies, has done nothing but complain, has made outrageous suggestions to the club, and has attacked at least 2 or 3 other members. My incident is just the most recent one in the last 3 months. I'm waiting on my friend to provide an update about this, and if necessary for me to provide evidence of the encounter. My friend was really shocked that this happened, and frankly, so was I. I mean, the entitled Karen was so aggressive about something which really is a non-issue. We both agree that any friendship that existed between us and her was now fully and completely dissolved. Now, the entitled Karen is not going to like that at all, because she is all about bragging and making connections, and she loves talking about who she knows and how famous they are. So trust me, she is not going to like this at all, especially if they kick her out of the club. Yeah, it seems like Facebook is really like the harbinger of all Karens. I swear, I've seen some of the worst arguments in my life on Facebook itself, especially in private groups. It's almost like it gives them a license to do and say whatever they want, and they feel emboldened to do that as if there's no consequences. So hopefully, for the sake of your sanity and everybody else's, this entitled Karen gets kicked out sooner than later, because the way she's acting is insane, and you do not deserve to be treated this way in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not giving my parents the baby blanket that my great-grandmother made for me, also that they can use it on my baby sister? Because right now I feel very hurt, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My great-grandmother made a baby blanket for me when my mom was pregnant. She did that for all her kids, grandkids, and then great-grandkids. I was the youngest until now, and my great-grandma would make it clear to parents involved that the baby she made the blankets for should be considered the owners, and it shouldn't be something they keep from us. And so, this is what always happened. I always had mine. My parents did try to take it from me a few times, but my great-grandma stepped in each and every time. Now, I loved mine because she had started experimenting with her knitting, and my blanket is more unique than the rest, and it feels just a little bit more personal. I treasure it despite being a 17-year-old guy, and I treasure it even more because my great-grandmother passed away when I was 10, and I miss her like crazy. So, my parents couldn't have more kids for years. They tried for years, and even did IVF when I was 7, but didn't have another kid from it. So with their focus being so set on that, I always felt like I wasn't good enough. off. And this is something that extended family brought to their attention a few times. It was comments like, "I just want a baby so bad. I can't imagine my life without a child," which is what my mom would say. And my dad would say, "We feel so incomplete without a baby." And that's how my family members would take notice that things were off. I mean, these were some of the comments that left me feeling as I do. It was never about having another baby. It was always just having a baby, almost like I was invisible. They talked about having a baby being their biggest dream, and it stung so much to have their focus in life around that, and they would get so depressed about not having a baby. My great-grandmother, before she passed away, told them to be thankful for the blessing, aka me, and how they already had a baby, and they were letting me grow up without them. It didn't change anything, and I did basically grow up without my parents, and they now have no idea who my friends are or what's even going on in my life. Now, this was a surprise pregnancy, and my parents are so excited. They did all the early tests to find out that they're having a girl, and now they started shopping and doing all kinds of stuff for her. But then my mom got sad because my great-grandmother isn't around to knit her a blanket too, so they told me that they wanted mine. Now, they didn't ask me for it. Instead, they simply told me, and when I said no, they grew angry. They said that she deserves to have a blanket from great-grandma and that their baby needs one. So I asked them what I was, and they said, "You're almost a grown man." Well, I left the blanket with my best friend because I was afraid my parents would search the house to find it. They were so angry, and they started doing the guilt trips, saying that my baby sister deserves better. And how can I look at myself in the mirror knowing that I don't want to share this with her? They told me that it's like I don't even want her to exist, or I hate her for something and she's not even born yet. So honestly, am I the jerk for not wanting to share my baby blanket? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, of course you are not the jerk. Your parents are being awful to you. Instead of taking care of their 17-year-old child and treating them like, I don't know, a member of the family, they're almost pushing you aside and treating this baby like a do-over. So for them to demand your baby blanket is completely out of the question. And I also think it was a really good idea to leave that with your friend, because based on the way they're acting, I'm kind of convinced that they absolutely would have gone out of their way to find that stupid blanket, because they clearly don't care about what you want in the slightest. Like, they literally are going out of their way to make sure that your new baby sister has everything that you never had growing up. So no, you are not the jerk, and hopefully you're able to move out of there at some point, because seriously, the way your family's acting is incredibly inappropriate. An entitled jerk chews me out after I sit in the easily accessible spots near the front of a bus, claiming that I should have given up my spot for him the second I saw him. But instead of ignoring these kinds of comments like I normally would, I decided that I was not going to take that. So I stood up for myself in a way that I've always wanted to do, and I feel very satisfied that I put this entitled jerk in his place. Here's what happened. So this happened a few months ago, where I was 8 weeks pregnant and feeling pretty nauseous, and I was tired most of the time. While coming home from work one day, I got on the bus and went straight for one of the seats right at the front on the bottom deck, as I wanted to sit close to the exit and no one else seemed to need it. These front seats are easily accessible, and they are for anyone who needs them. There is no definition of what those needs might be, but there are signs asking passengers to give them up to others who may need them more if they are able to. So I was sitting at the front of the bus with another lady next to me, and a few minutes into the journey, this older man gets on. He was probably in his mid-70s and appeared to be perfectly able-bodied in that he used no walking aids and did not appear to be struggling to mobilize. He looked towards the seat that I occupied as he walked past me and told me that those seats were for people like him and that I should have given it up to him when I saw him. He then sat down in the seat directly behind me, which was free. He had to walk all but an extra 2 steps to get to it too, by the way. I very nearly ignored him, but I was quite agitated by his remark, and I didn't want him or anyone else thinking that I had just taken my accessibility seat to be lazy. So I turned around to him and I reminded him that the accessible seats are for anybody who needs them. He looked quite perplexed when I said that, as though he was struggling to process that not everyone who has accessibility needs uses a walking frame or a pair of crutches. He sputtered some rambled reply back, so I cut him off and I told him I was pregnant and I needed to sit down or I was gonna puke. And when I said that, he did not know what to say. So I turned back around and I ignored him for the rest of the journey. I got off the bus before he did, and as the bus was pulling away, I purposefully made eye contact and I gave him the filthiest look I possibly could. He caught my eye for a microsecond before turning away, and hopefully that teaches him a lesson to not try anything like that with someone someone ever again. Yeah, that's insane to me that someone would actually say something like that in public and be like, wow, you shouldn't sit there. Like, seriously, buddy, you have no right to say that to anybody. She could have been sitting there for any number of reasons. And this entitled old jerk is gonna step up and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a wild assumption real quick. Like, that is so uncalled for, and there's just no good excuse for that. But for me, I love this story because it shows that you absolutely can always stand up for yourself. You don't always have to take the passive route in life and just take what other people throw your way. You have every right to defend your character and your good name, even when it comes to entitled jerks on the bus. An entitled guy I hired to cut my grass bi-weekly is angry that I didn't remind him to come and cut my grass. And I'm honestly just so blown away by this guy's entitlement. Here's what happened. A while ago, I hired a new guy to come and cut the grass at my house. He did a great job, and he told me that he can cut my grass every 2 weeks for $65 if that sounds good. And I replied, that definitely sounds good. So we agreed that every 2 weeks he would come out and get it cut. He initially cut it on April 22nd, so he was supposed to cut it again on May 6th. And around that time, I think to myself, wait, I know this guy said every 2 weeks, so where is he? Well, he doesn't show up, and I don't really worry about it, as the grass still looks pretty decent to me. Fast forward to May 11th, and the grass was grown, and my neighbor lets me know that he noticed my grass getting tall, and that his uncle cuts grass for many of the houses in our neighborhood. And it turns out that he's cheaper than the original guy. And this really does sound good to me, because the other guy never came around or let me know why he didn't show up. So I just kind of assumed that he wasn't doing it. So I pay for my neighbor's uncle to cut my grass. Fast forward again to May 14th, I get a random text message from the original guy saying that he's on his way to cut my grass. When I read that, I said to him, well, there is no need. We might have to reschedule this because I just got it cut on Saturday. This guy then responds by saying, we agreed that I'd cut it every 2 weeks. Sure, I was a few days over, but you should have called and reminded me. I responded by saying, I remember agreeing to you cutting the grass every 2 weeks, but it's been 22 days since the last cut, so about 3 weeks. So I assumed that you just weren't coming and someone else came along and offered to cut the grass Saturday. Like, he really wanted me to remind him of when to do his job for his business. I really don't think that falls on the customer to remind the company of scheduled appointments. And the company gets upset after essentially going missing in action until randomly texting you again one day saying that they're ready. Like, that is seriously so ridiculous, and I just can't believe that this guy acted this way. Yeah, that's the most backwards way of handling any kind of business I've ever heard of in my life. Like, does this guy not have a phone of some kind with a calendar that he can mark down his appointments? It is not that hard to put down a notification and properly schedule an appointment that you literally made. And you know what? I think the original poster has it right. This guy didn't show up for 3 weeks, and they found someone who does it for a lot cheaper. Like, if I was in the original poster shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. So yeah, that guy was super entitled, and if he really wants to stay in business, then he needs to learn how to keep his appointments. My entitled dad takes my inheritance that I got from my deceased mother and spends it all on frivolous things, claiming that I owe him money for all the times he paid child support for me and that he deserves that money way more than I do. And now, as a result, I am now considering cutting my dad out of my life completely, because right now I am so upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I just moved away, and while living with my father, he was constantly borrowing money from me or just straight up stealing my money without asking. I've been working since I was 16 years old, and I don't recall a single paycheck where he hasn't borrowed most of it. He has put our shared account in the negative so many times. He always claims it's because he has no money or just can't afford a bill, and this has become frustrating over time because I was never able to save up for anything. I tried hiding cash, opening up new bank accounts, and yet somehow always the money was found out about because he would track when I got paid, how much I would be paid, and question where the money went. If I lied, I would be scolded for irresponsible spending. It got to the point where I was watching him make financially irresponsible decisions and him falling back onto me and making it my problem. And as a note, I paid for all of my own bills and all of my own stuff. My mom passed away when I was 17 and I inherited money, and I wanted to use this money to move when I graduated high school. My parents were separated when my mom passed, and they were never together. My dad lived in another state, and I moved with him when I was 15 years old because he said he was going to take my mom to court because he felt he was a better fit as a parent. Prior to that, I rarely even ever heard from him. I saw him maybe twice a year. My dad disagreed with the idea of me using the money to move back home, and that I would only only need about 5% of it to actually move. His idea was for me to pay his car for him and to pay off half the mortgage to our house. He claimed that he would build a new house the next summer and I would have a master bedroom. Since we were living in a rundown old farmhouse, it needed to be severely remodeled or just knocked down. I mean, it had holes and cracks in all of the walls. He would tell me things like I'll never be able to live on my own and try to convince me that my family back home doesn't care that much about me. I felt hurt and really confused. I ended up just agreeing to the idea, thinking to myself that at least I'll have a car and a house. Also, I ended up being convinced into buying him a new riding lawnmower and a trailer that attaches onto a truck. And there was still more money, but I just don't know where it went. Well, fast forward, and none of what he said he was going to do actually happened. My car needed a new engine, and I even paid him the money to get it fixed, and it took him 2 years to get it done. And in the process, I watched him make more financially irresponsible decisions. I mean, this man genuinely believes that I owe him money, and that's because he had to pay child support for me when I was younger, or because he had to care for me when I didn't have a job when I was a minor. He acts like he was there for my entire life, when I know for a fact that he wasn't. He makes 6 figures a year, and has a wife that also makes almost that, yet they can't afford to live and somehow had to fall back on me. Now I moved out at 20, and I have none of my inheritance, yet somehow I can afford to live, and I now grieve all the money that I could have had. So would I be in the wrong to cut him off completely now that I moved away? He has already called me 3 times about money, and I've still told him no, and he's still gotten so upset with me, and even got upset at the job that I have, and told me that I need to make more money. I'm honestly at such a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your dad is awful. Like, this guy basically drained your bank account. He took all that money you got from the inheritance and literally just spent all of it, and it was on stuff that he could afford. Like, that money was meant for you, and it is so unfair that he basically stole it from you. So honestly, with all things considered, I wouldn't blame you in the slightest for cutting him out of your life, because based on what you've described, it really seems like he's going to be asking you for money pretty much for the rest of your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My in-laws are constantly telling me that I need to make up with my family and try to heal the wounds that my family has in the past. But after hearing this for so many weeks, I finally had enough, deciding right then and there that I was going to put them in their place and make sure they never said that ever again. Here's what happened. So I married my husband, who we will call Ryan, 7 months ago, and his family and I get along fine. But for 6 years, they had no idea my family background. And the reason is because they are so family oriented and are so naive to the reality of unhappy and toxic families that they come across as preachy about being so close together. This is something Ryan warned me about and spoke to them about before, but they still comment on it regularly. I don't speak to my family. I have a dad who raised me and a half-brother I was raised alongside half of my life. I'm an affair baby, and that came between me and my half-brother always. My mother didn't stick around long enough for me to ever know her, and I never tried to track her down later. My dad also ignored how damaging it was to have my half-brother always throw in my face how much he and his mom wish I didn't exist. Dad would also try to make his ex-wife and me interact, and she got so angry, and I would hear her tell him that she'd rather me not be alive than interact with me. The last time I saw my half-brother was when I was 22, and he told me to my face he would never love me or consider me a part of his family, and he saw me as repulsive just like our dad. My dad heard this, and he still dismissed how much that would hurt. So I don't speak to my dad anymore by choice, and my half-brother and I don't really talk by his choice. Any extended family treat me like I had the affair because they're closer to dad's ex-wife than my dad, and I was just a casualty of all of that. Plus, they ignore my half-brother, and he made it clear that he didn't want me to be around. I don't think about it often, and very few people know. I didn't tell my in-laws for years because of their attitudes around family, and when I did, a few weeks before I married Ryan, the reaction at first was somewhat surprising because they said nothing judgmental. But ever since that point, they have talked about my half-brother a lot and even his mom, and for some reason, they feel like me reaching out to them would heal everything, and we'd skip into the sunset arm in arm. Ryan told them it wasn't going to happen and to just please drop it, so they got more subtle and less direct. But a week ago, they brought it up again, and they told me how much better my life would be if I put in the effort to heal those relationships because family is everything. Ryan then told them that not all biological families are equal, but they told him that they're essential for all of us though. I told him it wasn't true in my case, and my half-brother's mom isn't related to me in any way, and that my half-brother is repulsed by me, and he considers me filthy because I'm an affair baby. I told him that's not something I can fix from simply reaching out, and I told him this very attitude about family is why I never told them for so long. Now, Ryan had my back, but his family were extremely upset by my words. My mother-in-law's anger was the most clear, and she told me it's unfair to judge them for wanting families to be healthy, and apparently that's all they were trying to help with. So am I the jerk for putting them in their place in the way that I did? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. These people are delusional. They don't understand for a second what it's like to have a toxic family, and they literally have no idea what they're talking about. Like, it's great for them that their family is so tight-knit, but that is not the case with all families. Some families are just downright toxic. Everybody sucks and everybody is mean and horrible to one another, with so much gossip and backstabbing comments, as well as many other awful things. So for these people to say over and over again, oh, you should just make up with them. Family is everything. That'll solve all of this. It's like, seriously, you guys need to shut up and back off. They don't know the intricacies of your family, and they absolutely overstep the line by continuing to bring this up over and over again. And by the way, they're only having a negative reaction because they got called out and they got put in their place over something that was none of their business. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and your in-laws absolutely should have minded their own business. Am I the jerk for saying no to my sister and her family when she asked me if her and her family can stay with my family after their house burned down in a house fire? Here's what happened. So my sister and her family lost their family home in a house fire 3 weeks ago. It happened in the middle of the night, and initially they stayed with our parents on night 1, but our parents have a 1-bedroom house and space was not optimal for that. So they asked if they could stay with me, my wife, and our kids, but we said no. And we said no for mostly one reason, but kind of two. For about 2.5 to 3 years, my sister has been so tough on my wife when it comes to the way that we feed our kids. And she focuses on my wife far more than me. But it does come back on me too. We don't keep sugar or junk food from our kids. We don't deprive them of that. But instead, we simply keep things balanced. We make veggie pancakes and we make healthier pizzas. We allow snacks like chocolate, ice cream, or cake. And we offer our kids sauces, but not all of them are homemade, but some of them are. Well, my sister is so judgmental about all of it. She didn't let any of her kids have any junk food until they reach school, and they can only eat something like chocolate at birthday parties, and they limit the number of those that they can attend in close proximity, so they don't get 2 days of junk food in a week, or more than 3 days of junk food a month. My sister or her husband will also stay at parties, even ones the 10-year-old is invited to, just to make sure they go for the salad over pizza, especially if they've had chips or candies. My sister acts like our kids eating a chocolate treat or just a few chips is the end of the world. She was essentially horrified to find out that we gave our kids fries and tacos one night, and that on another night, we gave chicken bites with potato cakes and not plain chicken once the potato cakes were involved. Veggies were included both times, but the idea of 2 less clean foods absolutely horrifies her. My sister-in-law is a pediatric dietitian, and she loves how we feed our kids. She told my sister that once, and my sister was horrified by my sister-in-law's profession. This has all become such a problem that it has led my sister to disrespecting my wife. So we see her far less, and I don't like that. We used to be so close, but I won't allow her to walk all over my wife over a difference in how we see things. Oh, and she also doesn't like that our kids get bread with soup. So when my sister asked if they could stay with us, I said no. She told me that they really wanted to stay with family instead of some hotel or a strange rental, and I told her that they would all be happier there, especially when she would be so bothered by the food that my wife and I feed our kids. But I also wasn't going to let her stay and disrespect my wife in our home. Well, my sister has been furious with me ever since then, and she told me I took things way too far. But I told her that she's been going too far for almost 3 years now. So honestly, am I the jerk for not letting my sister stay in my house? Because at this point, I really don't know what to do. No, not at all. I think that was the right move, because I guarantee you she would have done the exact same thing over again. It's so disrespectful to say all these horrible things about the original poster's wife, and then expect them to be like, oh yeah, come into my house for God knows how long. I can't wait to have you not only in my house, but also under your thumb again when it comes to how I feed my kids. That, in my opinion, would be absolutely obnoxious to deal with, and I definitely don't blame you for saying no. Am I the jerk for sending a price sheet to my family after they demanded that I make a cake for my half-sister's wedding, despite the fact that I wasn't invited? Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I am a full-time baker for a small business, and I'm also a college student. I moved back to my home state in September of 2023, mostly just to get away from my toxic family and to look for better opportunities in life. Also, to add why this is even an issue in the first place, my brother, who we will call Jay, as well as myself, are the black sheep of the family. And this is mostly due to the fact that we were born and mostly raised outside of a marriage. The teasing and neglect only grew worse after our mother married her husband and had our other 4 half-siblings. Now, here's the dilemma. My half-sister, who we will call JoJo, is getting married to a man in July. My mom and grandma asked that I make the wedding cake, which I would have happily agreed to if I was invited to the wedding in the first place. The thing is, they wanted me to make a cake fit for 200 people, get a hotel near them, work for 3 days, and get a flight there and back. I would have to pay for all of it, and they think it'd be a nice gift from my sister. Well, I just laughed and I sent them my price sheet, and they just flipped out. I was bombarded with text messages from them about how I'm being so truly vile, how I am toxic for expecting my family to pay for my cake when they could just go down to Walmart to get one. In fact, JoJo even messaged me on Discord a week after I had sent the price sheet and asked why I would charge her when I made my best friend a free wedding cake. Well, I simply told her to get lost, as not only was I invited to her wedding, but I was also the maid of honor, and in a way, it was me returning the favor for being a genuinely good friend and helping me out when I was going through a lot. Well, Jay and his wife said that I'm not wrong for it, and they would do the same thing, and my boyfriend is also on my side. However, a few people in my life are saying that I should have just said a simple no instead of sending the sheet, and that my response to my sister was really harsh. So I really need some outside perspective, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to the situation. Here's what they had to say. Okay, to start things off, I found out the exact reason for my brother's family and I not getting invited. 3 months after my sister and her soon-to-be husband got engaged, my grandmother requested my sister not invite the sinners. And it was more along the lines of basically, if you don't invite your siblings, I'll give you a hefty portion of my will. So, my sister is catering to the needs of my awful grandmother over her own sisters. And by awful, I mean that my grandma is straight up racist. I also found out another reason out of many as to why my brother and I were the black sheep in the family. For starters, my mother is whiter than paper, and my brother and I's biological father is Native American. We were told he just left us because that's how the savages act, when in reality, our father passed away from a terminal respiratory illness. The hatred from them only grew further when my brother married a black woman and had my 3 nieces, with the 4th one on the way. I told JoJo how hurt I was that she was picking money over family, but I kind of expected it. She tried to offer me $50 to make the cake she wanted, but I just declined. So at least now I know where everybody stands in my family, because these people really are the absolute worst. Yeah, your extended family are super toxic, not only for expecting you to do this all for free, but also for the way they've treated you throughout your life. It's all completely unfair, and they just have no good excuse for treating you this way. Never mind the fact that the grandma is just straight up racist. Like, that is unacceptable, and I'm so sorry you dealt with that. But hopefully you can move forward from this and continue living a life away from your toxic family, because you do not deserve this treatment in the slightest. An entitled customer demands that the new staff must be interviewed by him, as he practically claims to be the most important person to ever come into that restaurant. And honestly, that was the most awkward experience of my life, and I'm glad that I never dealt with him ever again. Here's what happened. So this happened a few years ago when I began working as a hostess at a well-known diner-style chain restaurant. I had been on the job a few days when a middle-aged man and his grandson came in, requesting to be sat at their regular table. The server working recognized them and showed me where to seat them in her section. We were slow at the time, and after a few minutes when I passed by their table, the man stopped me and requested that I sit with them for a few moments. And honestly, when he said that, I was completely confused. He then explained that he was the self-proclaimed king of this restaurant and that he knows all the staff, and anyone new must properly introduce themselves and really get to know him. Now, I awkwardly sat on the corner of their booth for a minute as he grandly gestured to his grandson, who was too busy playing games on his phone to look up at me, with the air air of introducing a real-life prince. So I just kind of looked at him and I said hi. He spent the next few minutes talking about himself as if he owned the restaurant, explaining that they were there every few days and that this was his family. While that's all very heartwarming, his level of ego and his hints that his approval was something I had to apparently earn to keep my job made me very uncomfortable, and I did not feel I should have to give any explanations about myself to this stranger. He continues by giving me the lowdown on his expectations, which essentially were that I must always seat them at this table without question, greet them like the royalty they are, and avoid seating louder parties near them at all cost. After I got up, the servers told me that he does this to all the new staff, and it's just better to go along with it because this guy has become friends with the managers. And funnily enough, that was the only time I actually saw him come in during my shift, and I can honestly say it was one of the weirdest customer service encounters I've ever had in my life. Yeah, that guy has like some serious main character energy. He really sat down with a new person on the job and said, okay, let me give you the lowdown. We're special because I say so, and you better give us exactly what we want or else I'm gonna cause a scene. Like seriously, buddy, that is so annoying it's not even funny. Like if that happened to me, I would go up to the manager and tell them straight up that this was weird and I don't appreciate this. Because if they really are friends, then the manager can be like, okay, that was fun, but you can't do that anymore with our employees. Because this guy was completely full on his own self-importance. And that honestly is so cringy, it's not even funny. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my fair share of drinks when I went to a bachelorette with my friends in Vegas, despite the fact that I don't drink? Because right now they're demanding that I pay a lot of money towards the tab. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so we had a bachelorette at Vegas last weekend and hit up a steakhouse and drinks at the club. The shows we visited were all on our own cards, and so was the steakhouse, but my friend put her card down for buying drinks and appetizers at the club. Now, I don't drink, and I haven't drank since college, and all my friends absolutely knew this. I had a custom cocktail that was basically costing me no more than $25, and it was practically just sparkling water. We agreed beforehand to split the bill, but I took that to mean the food and not that I would be required to pay for the drinks. The other girls did order 2 champagne bottles along with cocktails. Then, when we got back home, I got a Venmo request for $470, which I was very shocked by. I called my friend to ask what the breakdown was, and they said that it was split. But I said that was quite a bit, as I remember we ordered 4 appetizers that were $30 to $40 each, so my share should not be that high. Well, she got annoyed and told me that we agreed to split the bill, and I said I did, but only for the appetizer. She said she didn't take photos of the bill and now has no idea what anyone ordered, so I should agree to pay my share. But I said I didn't drink, so the only thing that's my share is the cocktail that was practically sparkling water. She said everyone was pretty wasted, so it was hard to determine who drank what, and since I didn't keep track of it, I should just pay for it. Now, by my calculations, I owe about $60 to $70, but since I didn't keep the receipts, she is insisting that I pay the whole $470. Now, I'm very unhappy with the situation, and I told another friend about this, and she acknowledged that I owe way less than what I'm being told to pay, but said out of the girls, I clearly had the best job, and 2 of the friends were living with their parents and working nearing minimum wage, and that I should just pay and call it even. I'm feeling like I'm getting fleeced because my flights and hotels weren't even as expensive as this one night out. So honestly, would I be the jerk for refusing to pay this amount? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you would not be the jerk at all, and honestly, it really seems like they're trying to screw you over. It is so convenient that these people would be like, oh, nobody kept track of anything, so I guess this is just what you have to pay. Like if that was me, I would want to know exactly how much everybody else is paying, because that seems incredibly overpriced. So no, you would not be the jerk in the slightest, because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. An entitled old jerk calls me lazy after I refuse to cut his grass for free, even though I've never met this guy before in my life. And I am seriously blown away by this guy's entitlement, as well as his expectation that I would work for free. Here's what happened. So I've worked in customer service for a while, and sure, I've had some old entitled jerks over the years, but I really try not to assume the worst because of someone's apparent age. I've had a lot of negative experiences with people of all ages. But today, however, I experienced something that I think is almost a perfect example of the negative stereotype of an older entitled person. I'm 27 years old and I bought my childhood house 4 years ago. It was very run down and I put a lot of effort into it. The subdivision that I live in was built in the mid-60s and an expansion was done in the mid-70s and early 80s. Most of the people people here are retired and either bought the house when it was new, moved in 20 to 30 years ago, or inherited the house from a family member. I work full-time and remote, but I go for a walk in the mornings, afternoons, and during lunch. One walk around the entire subdivision results in a circle of about 1.8 miles, so I try to do 3 to 5 loops a day if possible. I've been exercising for 4 years in the same routine, often 5 to 6 days every week except for winter. And you know what? Usually no one bothers me, but sometimes I have scary encounters with dogs or with teenagers trying to mess with me. And usually it's just them insulting me while I have my headphones on, but when I take off my headphones and say I heard that, they end up just leaving me alone. So anyways, today I was on my lunch break and I decided to go on a walk like I've done for about 4 years now. I throw my headphones on and I get about 1.5 miles done in my circle. I then see a house that has a younger man on the porch, a heavyset woman cutting grass, and an older guy cutting grass on the same front lawn. Now this lawn isn't very big and there is a house right behind him, so the backyard couldn't possibly be that big. I have a relatively large yard in my area and it takes me about 40 minutes to cut the grass and to weed it all myself. And mind you, that guy had somebody who could help him out. Well, he stops the mower as I walk by and I can hear him talking, so I take my headset off. He says to me, "If you want to walk, why don't you just take this mower and cut the rest and take out 2 birds with 1 stone?" Now at this point I assume he's joking, so I just laugh, but then he starts mocking my laugh and mutters under his breath about how kids are lazy and starts cutting his grass again. Now I'm getting close to 30. I work full time, I have my own house and my own maintenance to do. I am still finishing up grad school and I have a social life. My time when I walk is my me time. It's there to relax and better my own life. I literally mind my own business, and he actively reached out to try and get free labor for me and was upset when I refused. His adult son, or whoever was clearly on the porch smoking, was clearly not helping or even being a helper in the slightest. Like, why does this guy seriously think that a stranger should be obligated to cut his grass for free? Do old people like this really feel this entitled that they can just boss younger people around for free labor? Do they not understand that walking for leisure with music or a podcast is fun and completely different than manual labor? Does he really not understand that an adult with life responsibilities doesn't want to cut his grass for free after jogging a mile in the sun? I'm honestly completely blown away, and I hope I never have to deal with this guy ever again. Yeah, that guy was completely out of line. It's ironic that he's like, wow, kids these days don't want to work, and yet he's the one who doesn't want to work and cut his own grass. Like, does he seriously not see how hypocritical and stupid he's being right now? He is literally complaining about the very thing that he doesn't want to do himself. Like the fact that he tried to stop you, a random stranger, and get you to do his job that he clearly didn't want to do, in my opinion, is like the epitome of an old person who's super entitled. And the fact that he thought you would do it for free is all the proof that you need to blatantly show that this guy is super entitled. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen demands that me and my husband return a shopping cart that somehow ended up on the sidewalk in front of our neighbor's house. She even went as far as claiming that we must have been the people to do it and that it was our responsibility to return it and do the right thing. Here's what happened. So my husband and I live in a suburban neighborhood surrounded by entitled old people. And this is mostly because so few people our age actually own a home. And honestly, about 90% of them haven't been that bad, and they really just keep to themselves for the most part. It is, generally speaking, a quiet street. So anyways, randomly a grocery store shopping cart showed up on the sidewalk of our neighbor's house. It was very odd, but school's out, so maybe it was just a prank from a few streets over. We figured that whoever lifted it would either come back for it, or it would get picked up on trash day. While it was pretty strange, I'm still a firm believer in minding your own business. Well, my husband was walking the dogs on the opposite side of the road when out storms the entitled old Karen. We've never met this woman, but she parks on an adjacent street since it is a corner house and must enter that way too. So basically, we've never crossed paths. She then goes up to my husband and demands to know why there is a shopping cart there. Now, it's important to know that my husband is not a confrontational man, so he just kind of stared at her for a second before saying, "How should I know?" She then points over at our house and demands to know if he lives there. He says to her yes, and she says, "Well, the landlord wouldn't do this, so you had to take it back." Now, when the entitled Karen said that, my husband was stunned. This woman starts telling him that since her landlord clearly didn't park a shopping cart there, we must have been the people to do it, and that we needed to return it to the store because, according to her, it might get washed into the street when it rains and roll down the street and hit her car. She also said that the other tenant couldn't back his car out of the driveway and that it's now our responsibility to do the right thing, even though the shopping cart was literally 30 feet away from his driveway. Now, at this point, my husband told her that if she wants to play Nancy Drew, she's welcome to do that, but he has better things to do. And before he even walked off, some random truck pulled up, threw it in their truck bed, and then left without a word. And the look on her stupid red face was completely priceless. And after that, I will never understand some people's entitlement. Yeah, that's a really weird thing to assume out of somebody that you've literally never met. Like the original poster and their husband have never met this lady once in their life. They've never had a side conversation or any kind of like interaction at all. So for her to walk up and be like, "Ooh, you gotta get rid of that shopping cart. My landlord wouldn't do it." That's not only a really bad first impression, but it's also super weird to place it on the shoulders of people who had nothing to do with it. Like seriously, the original poster didn't do anything and somehow they're getting roped into this. So yeah, I completely agree with the original poster because this lady's entitlement was completely out of line. An entitled old jerk loses his mind when I pay with Apple Pay, all because he didn't think that it was real. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was checking out at Target today and I paid with Apple Pay. And this is basically where I tap my phone on the card machine instead of using my card, which is the usual way that I pay. Well, behind me, there's this entitled old jerk who's watching all of this go down, and he just about loses his mind at the sight of me paying with my phone. He looks at me and says, Hey, what did you just do with your phone? No card or nothing. Did you even pay for your stuff?" He then actually steps forward and tells the cashier that I didn't put a credit card in the machine. I finally turn to him and I say, "It's Apple Wallet. My credit card is on my phone." The cashier then chimed in and explained a bit more, and then the entitled jerk, still in shock, said, "Well, how is that even real? How does your card reader know it's your phone and that you're the one using it? How does it know it should connect to your bank? My bank never told me about this." He then told the cashier that this obviously can't be legal and that you shouldn't be allowed to use your phone to pay for things. He was furious that I could apparently just wave my phone over anything and then just walk out free as if I didn't pay for anything. He went on to say, "That's not right. That's not real. I'm sick of cheats. I pay for stuff that I want. I mean, come on." And this guy just went on and on. At this point, I was handed my receipt by a very amused cashier and just started walking out. And this guy was still completely worked up, asking the cashier how many times a day people pull this stuff on him. And overall, I'm honestly still blown away that he doesn't know what Apple Pay is. Yeah, there are literally so many different ways you can pay for stuff, it's not even funny. So the fact that this guy really was getting worked up over someone paying for something with their phone, that's not only hilarious to me, but it's also like, well, yeah, of course people can do that. So for this guy really to try and narc out the original poster and try to get them in trouble for something they didn't do, that in my opinion is super obnoxious and completely uncalled for. My crazy entitled mother is constantly causing problems in my life and has treated me like garbage for the majority of my childhood as well as my adulthood. And now on the cusp of my son's birthday, she's demanding that she be allowed to see my son for his birthday and that I need to stop being crazy and let her back into my life. But after all the things that she put me through, I am now at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my mom is incredibly entitled, very awful, and very demanding. And when it comes to the last time that I dealt with her, she was mad at me for not reading her mind and inviting her over to my place after she ordered me to come get her leftovers. Now, I couldn't do it and she just snapped. The pent-up anger snapped in me and I stopped reaching out. And that was on April 30th. I had an appointment with my psychologist who told me to take a break from the situation and to concentrate on myself and see how I felt about it all. Well, Mother's Day was less than 2 weeks later on the 12th of May. I posted about a few of the past Mother's Days that I had with her and how demanding she was of me in those times. It felt good to rant for a little bit, and in the end, I didn't reach out to her and she didn't reach out to me. It was peaceful with no exceptions. But she, however, wasn't happy. She ranted at family that I didn't wish her on that day, and that made me a bad daughter. She complained about how selfish and ridiculous I was being, and how she did not understand what she did so wrong. Now, nobody told me anything about it. They were all gossiping amongst themselves, and that's just as good for me. I prefer that over dealing with flying monkeys. Now, on the 13th, my husband received a text message from my mom calling us cruel, with us deciding not to answer. And on the 15th in the afternoon, my mom texted to ask me how long I would punish her, and that she was sorry that I was angry. She wanted explanations and that she loved me. And that night at 11:25 p.m., she texted me that she would come to see me. And when she said that, it really stressed me out. She did not come to see me on the 16th, and I was anxious all day as I usually don't do well with confrontation, and that's because I have autism and I usually just shut down. My husband asked me to keep all cameras on during the day just in case, as he wanted video evidence if she did show up. When he came back from work, he basically said screw it and took our son and went to buy new locks for the house. He installed them that same night, and he actually took our son with him in case she did show up because I didn't want my son to be around my mother. On the 17th, my husband got a call from my brother. My brother wanted to know what was going on because he was receiving multiple calls daily about my mother's side of things and wanted to get my husband's side. My husband asked for a minute as he was at work. He called me up and asked me what he should say. I told him to tell my brother that it was none of his business, but that our mom was well aware of what she did wrong as I told her, and that she had not apologized. So my husband called my brother back up and passed on the message. Now I wasn't even contacted about any of this, and my anxiety wasn't much better as I really was spiraling. On the 18th of May, while my husband was trying to sleep off a migraine, my mom showed up out of the blue. She texted me that she was in front of the house, and that got me really angry. I had to wake my husband, who didn't look like he should be walking around, ask him to bring our toddler in his playpen to keep him away from windows, and confront my mom. My mother parked out of earshot of our Ring camera, and my husband is certain that she did this on purpose, and I kind of agree with him. She was, however, inside of our doorbell camera, our front yard camera, my neighbor's camera, and quite a few of my neighbors who were out and about. And that's all to say that people I know would have interfered if I had yelled. Now, when I came out there, she was acting all sad, as if she didn't know what she did. Well, I just confronted her. I told her that I couldn't read minds. I told her she was always expecting me to do that, but she denied it. I pulled out quite a few examples, and I told her she was always asking too much of me, but she just denied it. So I gave her some more examples. And then she asked if this made her a bad mom, and I told her yes. But it wasn't nearly as bad as when she would get physically aggressive with us when we were kids, even though she literally denies ever doing that, stating that it was just moments of craziness. But you know what? Even her getting physical with us was not on the highest part of my list of why she was a bad mom. Another reason is her having illegal substances in the house, or even the time that her girlfriend tried to sell me illegal substances. She said to me, "You know she was only joking," but I told her no. She knew what she was doing, and she knew that it wasn't a joke. But regardless, those jokes should not be tolerated for your kid. I then told her that she was a bad mom because she never protected us from her partners. She didn't protect us from our dad or her ex-girlfriend. She literally protected us from nobody. But even then, she just denied all of it. I then brought up that in July of last year, her ex literally said he was going to do awful things to me and one of my brothers. And despite it all, she still refused to open any kind of police report, claiming that she didn't have enough proof. And yet, a few weeks later, when the very same woman threatened to beat her up, she did end up going and filed a police report. I reminded her that she knew that woman was insane enough to try and hurt someone who also has a baby. Well, when I said that, she just cried harder. And I mean, she was seriously sobbing. I then told her that she never protected me and that I can't trust her to protect my son. Well, when I said that, she suddenly stopped crying. She said to me, "You know I would protect him like I always protected you." And she seemed so offended that I wouldn't trust her with my son. I honestly at that point wanted to fight her. I wanted to break her nose. I wanted her to feel a sliver of pain that she put me through. I ended up walking back into my house, and she just stayed in her car, yelling about me not walking off and to act like an adult. But I just refused to answer her. I didn't give her a parting comment, I didn't look back, and I just walked in and locked the door. I then went and I hugged my son and my husband. She stayed parked in the street a few minutes and then sped off angrily when she realized that I wasn't coming back out. And you know what? I cried a lot. It really was a lot to take in how little she saw of her being a bad mom. Later that night, she sent me a text message. She said to me, "Your memories are really biased. Except for the events at the store where you and your siblings would get spankings. I never hit you guys. I did my best. I never said I had been perfect, but I always tried to protect you the best that I could. I'm sorry for being your mom, but now I'll just leave you alone. Take good care of yourself." And you know what? I just didn't answer. I spoke to my psychologist, and he told me that I have two choices because she would never change. I had to accept that this is who my mom will always be. So I either accept her in my life as she is, or I kick her from my life entirely. But you know what? My decision had already been taken, and I decided to go completely no contact. But you know what? I know she's not done yet, and she will do crazy stuff to get my attention, so I decided not to block her. No contact orders are very difficult to get where I live, and you need a lot of evidence, so I decided not to block her. Now, my psychologist just wasn't sure she wouldn't reach out anytime soon, and honestly, I wish he was right. On the 22nd, my mom sent me another message. She told me to contact her when I'm done being psychotic, and she sent me 9 messages in all, but I still didn't answer. Now, the reason I'm posting this is because it's my son's birthday in a week, and she texted me basically saying, "Can I see my baby for his birthday?" And I'm seriously now it's such a loss, and I now don't know what to do. Wow, your mom sounds like an awful person, and there's no way I would ever let her around your son. Like seriously, think about it for a second. She clearly has never learned her lesson that she was an awful mom, and it seems like you put up with a lot of garbage throughout your entire childhood. Like that is so unfair for you, and I honestly don't blame you for trying to keep that from your son. Like she does not sound like a good influence in the slightest. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever stay in contact with her. She clearly just wants to do you harm and cause problems in your life, and you definitely do not deserve that in the slightest. My clingy younger sister hates the fact that I'm bringing my boyfriend to our family vacation, as she claims that him being there is going to ruin her experience altogether and is now demanding that he doesn't go. Here's what happened. So I'm a 22-year-old female, and my younger sister, who's 16, has been pretty attached to me my entire life and has struggled to branch out in her own personal social life, which has made this attachment way worse. She is extremely shy with other people, but towards our family, she has a very short temper and is prone to angry outbursts. I started dating my boyfriend about a year ago when we met in his senior year of college, and we've been long distance for the majority of our relationship. He is my first actual serious relationship, and I love him a lot, but my younger sister has been pretty much adverse to me being in a relationship the entire time. I attend college close to my hometown, so whenever I would visit and come home, my sister would make it so clear that she hates when I text him, and that she also hates when I FaceTime with him. Once my attention couldn't be focused on her every waking second, things hurtled downhill, and she's called me a bad sister for FaceTiming him at night and for texting him throughout the day, which has been really exhausting. And yet, she still says that she is happy for me and likes my boyfriend, and that she hates the time that I spend with him. And if I'm being completely honest, this has put a large strain on our relationship. Besides that, my parents and extended family have embraced my boyfriend with open arms, and my sister will still try and begrudgingly pretend to be pleasant with him because he really is a great guy. My friends all love him, and I'm good friends with his friends as well. So now I'm home for the summer, and my family usually goes to the Philippines in July since my mom is Filipino. My boyfriend expressed wanting to come meet my family there, and my family said yes, and my sister would just silently nod or leave the room, but I assumed that she was at least tolerant to the idea. But I was so incredibly incorrect. About 3 weeks ago, when my sister found out that my boyfriend bought a ticket, everything became a nightmare. I'm talking like a full-on tantrum. She was screaming, crying, stomping, slamming doors. She was throwing things around, including my things. She was yelling at my mom, pulling literally handfuls of hair out, and basically just being inconsolable. She has yelled at me countless times, saying that I ruined her life and her vacation, and that I'm supposed to be going for her and not for my boyfriend. She has called me every single name: a terrible sister, selfish, stupid, an idiot, and so much more. It has literally been on and off angry outbursts this entire month. When she finally takes some time to cool off, a notification from my boyfriend will pop up on my phone, and it just starts all over again. And it's been like this for the entire month of May, pretty much. She says that she's angry because it was supposed to be a family vacation, but when I ask her why she didn't tell me that earlier, she just tells me that I'm the stupidest person alive for assuming that this would be okay. She also said that she needs my help socializing with our family in the Philippines, and I won't be able to do that with my boyfriend around. But I didn't even know that helping her talk was a responsibility that I had. I've tried to reassure her countless times that I will spend time with her, and that she can have fun in the Philippines even with him there. But she insists that she will hate it, and that I've completely ruined her summer. When I try to apologize, her only response is to say, "Good, I want you to feel bad." She says the only solution is to tell him not to come, but then I said, well, I just won't be going either, which sends her back into a rampage. I've asked for advice from my friends with younger siblings, and even my friends who are younger siblings, and no one ever describes experiencing this. Has anyone dealt with this before? I've had dozens of conversations with her, but it all just goes nowhere. She's so angry that no conversation ever makes any progress, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, it seems like your sister's being completely unreasonable, and there is literally no point in continuing this conversation at all. Like, she's completely inconsolable. She's not accepting apologies, she's not seeing reason, and she literally admitted that she wants you to feel bad. And you know what? You don't deserve that in the slightest. You have every right to bring your boyfriend, and if this is how your sister's gonna act, then that is literally her problem and not yours. So if I was in your shoes, I would just start walking away and completely ignoring her, because you've tried to have conversations with her. You've tried to talk things out and reassure her that you're gonna spend time with her, but clearly that's not gonna be good enough. So if I was in your shoes, I would start locking my door and I would just walk away from her and avoid her completely, because the way she's acting is completely immature and so uncalled for. And in my opinion, you did not do anything wrong, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My crazy entitled aunt kicks me out of her house as she claims that I'm a vindictive sociopath. But despite the fact that she stole money from me every single month, as well as went behind my back to learn my secrets from my therapist, she still claims even to this day that she was a saint for putting up with me for as long as she did. And I now feel very confused and very hurt. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Okay, I need to start off with a bit of background. I'm currently 26 years old and I'm a female, and this took place mostly when I was 21 to 22 years old. I should also say straight up that I am not a sociopath. I do have mental issues, which I'll explain briefly in a moment, but none of those issues include me being a sociopath. Before this story, I had a very strong relationship with both my aunt and my uncle. I had been living with my parents, but they were moving to a new state, and I at the time didn't want to leave my life behind. So my aunt and my uncle offered me to move in, originally with no rent required or expectations of me. This seemed like a great idea. I could grow to be my own person and start healing from some really bad experiences I had prior. However, I really had absolutely no idea just how bad this would all turn out for me. The first few months were great. I got a job nearby at a grocery store, and I got myself a therapist for my mental issues. Now, for the short list, I had developed a severe depression at a young age, and I had a history of attempting self-deletion, if you know what I mean. I have severe anxiety, which is now worse today. I have PTSD, and I also have dyslexia, ADHD, and autism. Now, despite all of these, I was starting to actually function as a normal member of society thanks to my therapist. For the first time in my life, I actually began to feel good about myself. I wasn't judged on my clothes, I wasn't judged on my eating habits, and I wasn't judged for doing any of my art projects or for just playing video games. I even got myself a tattoo of a roaring tiger turning into a dagger on my shoulder, and it still looks awesome even today. But then it happened. I apparently broke the water filter on the fridge, so like the responsible adult that I was trying to be, I offered to pay for it, and I did exactly that. Then I bought myself a filter water bottle. That way I wouldn't break the fridge filter ever again. Now, I wouldn't know this until months later, but apparently this was taken as me being spiteful. Now, how is this spiteful, you may be asking? Well, honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Then a few weeks later, my little sister spent 3 days with me at my aunt's place, and I took care of her and everything was fine. But when I went to work on the last day, I came home to absolute chaos. So I'm not entirely sure what exactly happened, but the microwave, which was in perfect working condition before work, was broken in a strange way. The glass on the microwave door was shattered. I'm not entirely sure how to describe it, but it looked as if someone tried to break the microwave door off of the microwave, which is not something that my 14-year-old sister had the strength to do, but she was somehow still being blamed for it. So here I am trying to be responsible and just try to solve the issue by offering to pay for a new microwave, as I knew that it wasn't my sister, because someone had to fix this issue, and I felt that it was my responsibility to protect my sister. So I bought a new microwave, leading into this next issue. My aunt said that I spent too much money and offered to help me save. The original deal was that I would give her $400 a month and she would put it away for savings. And at the time, I was stupid and young, thinking that there's no way my family would screw me over, so I didn't get this in writing. Well, I never saw this savings as she always used my money. But hey, this may be half my monthly money, but at least I'm not having to buy my own food and hygiene products, right? Well, I was so wrong. 2 weeks later, I wasn't allowed to eat their food or expect them to buy my shampoo and body wash. And I thought to myself, okay, that's not really a big deal. I surely make enough, and the money I'm giving my aunt will be for moving out once I find a place. I did not make enough in between paying my therapist, my phone bill, my rent, and trying to buy my own food, so I was completely broke. Then my aunt would request me to bring home groceries with a promise that she would pay me back. But then, as you can probably guess, she would never do it. Now, here's an example. One day, my aunt asked that I bring her home an entire lemon pepper rotisserie chicken that was about $10. And for reference, I only made about $10 an hour. So I buy it, I bring it home, and I stand there waiting for my money as she starts eating it right there. I was then appalled when she said to me, "No, you can't have any. This is my food. Go away." Eventually, I ate maybe once every 3 days, and my therapy sessions weren't working as my therapist began claiming that I was just overdramatic when I talked about how useless I was beginning to feel. I eventually found out that my therapist and my aunt were close, and they would talk about me a lot, and my therapist would even tell my aunt everything I said in therapy. Then COVID started, and this is when it all got really bad. My aunt claimed that I was a sociopath. Now, you might be asking yourself, what evidence could she possibly have? And the only thing that she could come up with is that I didn't yawn when other people yawned. Suddenly, any small mistake that I made was a vindictive attack. For example, if I forgot to throw away some trash, she would say that I left it there out of spite. If I didn't rotate my laundry at the exact moment the cycle ends, she would claim that I was purposefully in the way so that she can't do her own laundry. She also had a habit of opening my mail and reading it, trying to push me off to random guys when they drag me to bars and casinos, and I now just don't like going to either because I'm not a big drinker and I hate gambling. And this is also not to forget what happened when I told her that I was bi. She said to me, "You are born either straight or you're born gay, and you were born straight. Being bisexual is a perversion. If you ever date a woman, I will disown you." So naturally, my girlfriends were kept secret. By October of 2020, my aunt claimed that she couldn't deal with me anymore and kicked me out. So I moved to my parents as I had no money because she never gave me any of that savings money that she said she was putting away. My aunt then disowned me after she kicked me out, and you know what? At first I was distraught as I truly had no idea what I had done so wrong while I was living with her. Now, an unfortunate side effect of autism is that you truly don't understand why people react the way that they do, and most people don't care enough to take the extra time to talk to us. We are also unfortunately easy to manipulate and break apart. That year that I spent with my aunt was meant to build me up, but instead it did a lot of damage to me mentally. Oh, and I now just don't trust my therapist anymore. To this day, I still haven't talked to my aunt, and I now always make sure there's a contract made for anything involving money, whether it's family or not. To this day, my aunt still believes that I'm a vindictive sociopath, and that she was a saint for dealing with me for so long. So at this point, I really need to know if I was the jerk in this situation, because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk, and I'm so sorry that you dealt with your aunt for so long. For starters, you're definitely not a sociopath, and if anything, that's your aunt projecting that onto you. Like, the way she treated you was insane. She very clearly broke that microwave, by the way, and she also was stealing money from you every single month. Not to mention the fact that your therapist went behind your back. Like, that's insane behavior and also incredibly illegal. So for her to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm such a saint for dealing with you for so long," like, that's insane because it's definitely not the truth. You had to put up with so much garbage from that lady, it's not even funny. So no, you are not the jerk. Your aunt is incredibly manipulative, and I'm honestly so sorry that you dealt with that in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for yelling at my sister after she basically tried to take over my wedding planning process by ignoring and completely tearing down everything that I was trying to do? Because right now she's very angry and is refusing to talk to me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female, and to start things out, I'm planning my wedding for September of this year. It's the end of summer and also the month that I met my fiance. My sister, who we will call Kat, that's not her real name, was supposed to get married 5 years ago, but her partner passed away in a motorcycle accident. She was devastated and had a hard time. Since then, she's been very gloomy, and her relationships don't last long. She also goes to therapy off and on. When I told my family that I was getting married, Kat was visibly sad. So my mom asked me to involve her in the planning and to ask for her opinion to make her feel more part of it. However, she didn't agree with my choice of September, thinking it's a bad month for a wedding. She also didn't like the colors I picked or the dress I wanted. But regardless, I tried to listen to her sometimes. At one point, she said to me, "I can't believe you'll be the first daughter that my father's gonna walk down the aisle." And when she made that comment, I was completely gutted. Now, it's also important to know that I'm not having a religious ceremony. My fiance's best friend got a license to officiate our marriage, so it's not that serious. But with that in mind, I'm planning the wedding to reflect our personalities. My best friend suggested that the bridesmaids wear different colored dresses, but my sister didn't agree. She made some comments by saying, "It'll look like a gay pride parade," as well as saying, "You're turning your wedding into a gay wedding by listening to all of your
friend suggestions. And yes, my best friend is gay, but we have similar taste, so his opinions are highly valuable because they match mine. Last week, we were organizing the entrance of our bridesmaids and best men, and in our culture, we call them godfathers and godmothers, and they enter together. So I told her that my best friend would enter with his boyfriend. My sister then said that my wedding was going to be an absolute circus, and that as my older sister, she would make me see reason. She insisted that two men shouldn't enter the ceremony together because not all the guests would understand and appreciate it. Well, needless to say, her comments were very annoying and very hateful. She continued with her remarks and even called my fiance to get his opinion. At some point, I was fed up, and I yelled out by saying, "You're out of line because this is my wedding and not yours. You can have your own wedding and plan it as you want." I was very angry, and my mom came from the garden to see what was happening. Well, Kat started crying and went to her room. It's been 5 days, and she's giving me the silent treatment. She told my mom that she won't be attending my wedding, and it's honestly very annoying. She always tries to make me feel uncomfortable. For example, if she's in the kitchen and I enter, she just straight up leaves. Yesterday, my mom said I should apologize because my sister is fragile and this topic makes her suffer. However, I don't think that I'm much of a jerk, but my mom said that yelling at her was a jerk move, even if I was right. So honestly, am I the jerk for yelling at my sister? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. For starters, what your sister went through is honestly awful, and it sounds like she's still dealing with that grieving process and all that comes along with it. But seriously, it really is your own wedding. It seems like she's trying to curate this into what she wants out of the wedding instead of what you want, and that's really not fair for you in the slightest. Like, you're just trying to have the best wedding possible, and she's almost trying to take over and like make it her own. That is seriously obnoxious, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and while yes, your sister is clearly going through a lot, the way she acted towards you is completely unacceptable. And if I was in your shoes, I probably would have reacted the exact same way. Am I the jerk for leaving without explanation after my mother-in-law pretended not to hear me and then decided to break more boundaries that I had set with her in the past? Because right now, my husband is very upset with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I have a 7-month-old daughter with my husband who's also 34. My country does ensure a long maternity leave for up to 2 years. However, I am self-employed, and I cannot afford to lose my clients, so I try to work while my daughter is sleeping and during the weekends. Lately, she's been teething, so I'm operating on little to no sleep. Now, with that bit of context, I need to say that I have an issue with my mother-in-law. She does what she wants despite people asking her not to, and then she says oops or just completely denies ever doing it. It was annoying before the baby, but after she was born, it became insufferable. My husband talked to her and set boundaries, so she stopped doing that when my husband is present, but she was still doing it when it's only me in the room. So we agreed she cannot visit when my husband is not at home, and my husband is not to leave me alone with her. Because of these boundaries, we did not see them for nearly 2 months. They lived 2 hours away, and we did not find a mutually good time, but they finally came over last Sunday. 20 minutes into the visit, my father-in-law wants to see a lawnmower that was broken down, so my husband goes into the backyard with him, leaving me, the baby, and my mother-in-law inside. She's drinking coffee and eating cake, and then she sits next to my daughter on her playmat and tries to feed her some of the cake. I immediately told her no, that she can't have that, but my mother-in-law pretends not to hear me and proceeds putting her spoon up to my daughter's closed mouth. I repeat that she needs to stop doing that and that she can't have cake yet, and definitely not from your spoon. But still, she pretends not to hear me. I repeat it again, and still I get nothing. And now there's cake on my baby's face and she's fussing. So I grab my daughter and I go to my husband and my father-in-law, suddenly gesturing him to come back inside. After about 5 minutes, my mother-in-law decided to go outside too and was approaching me and the baby. I gestured to my husband again, and he made an annoyed face. I had no energy to deal with any of this, so I stood up, went inside, grabbed the baby bag and the car keys, and I went to the car without saying a word. My mother-in-law asked me where I was going, but I just completely ignored her. I drove to my sister's, which is about 15 minutes away, and there were some missed phone calls from my husband, so I texted him where we were and that we'll be back in the evening. It was time for my daughter's nap anyways, and she fell asleep, so my sister told me to go to sleep as well. After she woke up and had her milk, my sister took her and told me to go back to sleep, and I slept for 3 hours in total, and my phone was on silent, so my husband's calls were ignored, and apparently his parents left disappointed and my mother-in-law cried. Well, my husband is now furious that I did this. We're still fighting about it, and he can't believe I was so rude and took the baby away when his parents came to see her after such a long time. He's angry I couldn't have waited a few minutes so that he could finish talking about the lawnmower. But I told him I'm too exhausted to deal with this garbage. He left me alone with my mother-in-law despite our agreement. So am I the jerk for leaving without explaining anything? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. I don't think you're the jerk, but also I can't believe that your husband is not more assertive with his mom. Like seriously, you straight up said, hey, don't do that with my kid. And she not only pretended not to hear you, but she also sat there and just did it anyways. And your mother-in-law absolutely knew what she was doing. She was doing all of that on purpose. Her alibi when you complained later to your husband was that, oh, I didn't hear her say anything. But that's a load of garbage that literally just does not stand in my opinion. And if she wants to act like some kind of stuck-up jerk by doing whatever she wants with your daughter, then by all means, in my opinion, I would have left as well. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and take that for a second, especially from somebody who's gonna be so blatantly and openly disrespectful, because her behavior is absolutely disgusting, and there is no way you should have to put up with that in the slightest. My entitled mother stole my identity and is now begging me to open up a credit card in my name that the both of us can somehow use. And I'm honestly so done, and I just can't wait to finally move out. Here's what happened. So my mom has put several bills in my name when I was younger, and when I turned 18, I checked my credit and I found a debt of over $800. She had messed up my credit so badly, but the good thing is that I disputed it and it was removed in just a few weeks. Fast forward and I'm now 22 years old, and a few months ago my ID was laying around in my room, and she came in with her phone to show me a picture of my ID to say to me, see how easy it is for someone to just take a picture of your ID? And when she did that, I lost my temper and I got mad at her for taking a picture of my identification, knowing that she always accidentally posts pictures on Facebook because she literally doesn't know how to work a phone. Not to mention that she went to jail for fraud when I was 3 years old. So I told her to delete the picture of my ID, but she refused to do it. Later that day, she was talking about her boyfriend overseas in Africa and sent him a picture, but she sent him the wrong picture and told him to delete that picture that she sent immediately. And only then does she come to me telling me that she deleted my picture. And at this point, I feel like she accidentally sent a picture of my ID. I asked her and she said it wasn't my ID that she accidentally sent, but I just don't trust her. Fast forward and I just got a job at a restaurant that's paying me about $18 an hour. She gets Social Security income monthly, and I was struggling with my part-time job, so we are down bad in poverty. Every day I'm finding ways to work, and I even have to call in a Lyft just so I can get to work in the first place. Well, she wanted to sabotage the fact that I barely have money to get to work until my full check comes in, while she has a few dollars that she can give me, as I've done it for her a billion times. She told me to put a credit card in my name so we can have groceries and gas money, and if I don't do that, then clearly I just don't want to help myself. I'm honestly so sick of how ridiculous this is, and I will be moving out very soon, because my hate for this woman is growing literally every single day. That is insane behavior, and seriously, I would be on guard from here on out. Like, your mom not only went to jail for fraud when you were 3 years old, but she's actively trying to ruin your credit and basically use you for free money. Like, why on earth would you leave your identification lying around, or even still live with her after the age of 18? Like, that should have been an immediate sign of saying, oh yeah, I gotta get out of here as soon as possible. Because trust me, when given the chance, this lady absolutely will ruin your life. She's already tried to do it once before. So yes, I would be moving out very quickly. There is no way I would ever stick around in that kind of environment, because what you're describing sounds like an absolute nightmare. Am I the jerk for not inviting my sister to my wedding, all because of her behavior that she exhibited at my engagement party? Because right now, my sister is furious, and my parents are upset, saying that I should give her another chance. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm getting married in 2 months to my fiance, who we will call Alex. We got engaged last year and decided to have a small engagement party with close friends and family. It was supposed to be a joyful occasion, but my sister, who we will call Emily, caused quite a scene. Emily has always had a flair for drama, but I didn't expect her to make my engagement party all about herself. She showed up late wearing a white dress which felt very inappropriate, and immediately started complaining about everything: the food, the decorations, and even the guest list. The breaking point was when she got into a heated argument with my best friend Sarah, and it was over something so trivial. She accused Sarah of trying to steal the spotlight and ended up causing a huge scene that left many guests feeling uncomfortable. My fiance and I had to step in to defuse the situation, and it completely ruined the mood of the evening. After the party, I had a long conversation with Emily about her behavior, and she apologized, but it felt insincere, and more like she was just saying it because she had to. Since then, I've been anxious about her attending the wedding and potentially causing more drama. After a lot of thought, I decided not to invite Emily to the wedding. I felt it was the best decision to ensure the day went smoothly and was about celebrating our love rather than dealing with unnecessary drama. When I informed Emily, she was furious and accused me of being unforgiving and petty. My parents are also upset, saying that I should have given her another chance and that I'm being too harsh. And right now, I'm starting to feel guilty. I don't want to cause a rift in my family, but I also want my wedding day to be peaceful and happy. So right now, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk for not inviting my sister to my wedding, because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It seems like your sister was using your engagement party as like a rehearsal for the way she's gonna act at your wedding. For starters, she literally showed up in a white dress. And in my opinion, if you're looking for a red flag in this story, that's a really good place to start. It's pretty obvious, but you really should not wear white dresses at someone else's wedding. That is a really messed up thing to do, and it only steals the spotlight from the bride. So for her to sit there and be like, oh, you're trying to steal the spotlight from the bride over to your best friend, like not only was that just not true, but it also seems like Sarah basically gave away exactly what she's trying to do. She showed up trying to make some kind of big grandiose entrance and then just went after the next person that she could see within eyesight. Like that is so annoying, and there's just no good excuse for that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk by not inviting her, because honestly, it really seems like you're saving yourself from a massive headache. An entitled Crazy Karen blocks me from cycling on a bike path as she claims that I shouldn't be on this trail, but instead should be on the road. And despite the signs on the pavement and on the road blatantly stating that she's in the wrong, this entitled Karen refuses to allow me to pass. Here's what happened. So a couple of weeks ago, I was cycling to a driving lesson. The road to the testing center has a bike lane on the pavement, and there are signs all down the road indicating this, as well as bikes painted on the ground, just to really emphasize that the pavement is also a bike lane. So I'm cycling along, and I'm not going fast as there are teenagers walking around, and they're going to and from the college further up, and if they happen to be in my way, I just quickly ring my bell and then they move over with no issue. I get near the test center and there's a lady with 3 dogs. Now, as I've always been taught, I came to a stop because animals are unpredictable, and it wasn't too wide of a path, so I didn't want to risk them jumping out in front of my wheel. Now, at this point, I should have just gotten off my bike and walked past them, but this lady was still walking, so I thought, okay, maybe it would be okay to just stop and let her walk past. But my God, was I completely wrong. She had no control of these dogs, and she was just letting them walk wherever they liked. In fact, one of these dogs decided that they wanted to walk on the other side of my bike, which is literally away from where this lady and her other dogs are at. So now I'm just stuck. Well, this entitled Karen then decides that this is the perfect time to start arguing with me. She says to me, "Excuse me, but you would do better on the road." I look up at her and I say, "Oh no, it's okay. This is a cycling path." This entitled Karen then screams at me, "No, it has pedestrian priority." I try to tell her that it's also a cycling lane, but this lady cuts me off. She screams out, "Pedestrians have priority." And right then I said, well, I know that. That's why I stopped. But she screamed at me that I need to get off the road. Now, at this point, I was getting frustrated too, so I just screamed back and said, "I am on the stupid cycling path." Now, also bear in mind, she is making no move to get her stupid dog out of my way, so I'm essentially just trapped there. The entitled Karen continues to scream at me, repeating over and over again that pedestrians have priority. But I just said to her, "And I stopped my bike, lady. What more do you want?" Now, at this point, her dog had finally moved away enough for me to cycle off, and as I'm leaving, this entitled Karen screams out, "Get off the road. This is pedestrians only." So I just told her to shut up as I cycled away. And trust me, I kept on cycling. I managed to still make my lesson on time, but I had to take about 5 minutes to calm down because I was literally shaking with anger and adrenaline. I mean, honestly, some people just want to go out of their way to shout at people. And unfortunately, it was my turn to be in the firing lane. But regardless, I hope I never have to deal with that entitled Karen ever again. It's so funny to me that people act like this, especially when they have all these signs all around them, as well as the pavement literally right below her, explicitly shouting at her that yes, this is a cycling lane as well. Like she's shaking and shouting that pedestrians take priority, but that's exactly what the guy did. He stopped cycling so that she could pass. Like seriously, what more did she possibly want? Like it really seemed like she just wanted to shout at somebody, and that is so obnoxious. So yeah, hopefully you don't have to deal with that lady ever again, because her attitude was completely unnecessary. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for defending my husband after my brother implied that my husband doesn't make any money. Because right now, my brother and his fiance are very mad at me, claiming that I embarrassed him in front of our parents. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I come from a family of white-collar career people. My dad owns his own business, and my mom is a pediatric surgeon. My older brother is a lawyer and loves to boast about how much money he makes. He is always buying new watches and expensive suits, and he also drives a Porsche and is engaged to who will be his third wife. I've always been more introverted than my brother, and I tend to fade into the background. I created and operate my own business, and I make a more than decent living. My husband is a master electrician, and he owns a very successful business. He makes more than 3 times what I do. We are a double income, no kids couple. However, we keep our income very low key, and we don't spend money like my brother does. My parents are aware of how much my husband makes because we paid for their 35th wedding anniversary getaway, and my dad saw the price tag. We were at Mother's Day on Sunday, and both my brother and I bought nice things for our mother as gifts. He bought her jewelry, and I got a certificate for several hand massages at a spa near the hospital that she works at. My mother thanked us, and my brother decided that it would be a good time to brag about how much the necklace cost. He then looked at my husband and jokingly said that my husband could never buy a necklace like the one he got for his mother, and how my husband could never afford anything simply because he was on an electrician's wage. He carried on like that until I had had enough of him insulting my partner, because my husband has worked way harder than my brother to get where he's at. I then yelled at my brother to shut up, and that my husband easily makes twice what he does, and that he should sit down and be more respectful. I told him that Mother's Day is about mom, not you, and those were my exact words. After my brother left, and soon after I snapped at him, I apologized to my mom, and we went on to have a wonderful dinner, where mom told my husband embarrassing stories about me when I was little. My husband thanked me for standing up for him, and my mom told me that she had a lovely night while we were on the phone yesterday, and told me that she used some of the money on the certificate to get her wrists and fingers massaged after a 10-hour surgery. She told me that she was very happy with my gift. Well, my brother's fiance sent me a tirade of messages, absolutely blasting me for embarrassing him in front of our parents and calling me a jerk. Now, I feel bad for causing drama, but I'm happy that I stood up for my husband. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. If your brother didn't want to get embarrassed, then he should not have set himself up in the way that he did. Like, it's so funny that the fiance's calling in and being like, wow, why would you do that? You humiliated him in front of his parents. And it's like, lady, no, I didn't. He embarrassed himself. He was going in on the original poster's husband and being like, wow, you could never afford what I can afford. I'm so rich. Like, this guy was being a massive jerk. This is the classic case of not getting the full story while also getting a very jaded version of the story at that. I'm sure the brother came home and was like, wow, my sister embarrassed me in front of everybody, but failed to mention how he was also basically calling the husband poor. Like, that is so inappropriate and honestly so unfair. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Your brother was being a complete clown, and in my opinion, he absolutely deserved to be put in his place. A group of entitled jerks shut down a pool that they broke into by leaving broken beer bottles all over the pool, and as a result, it cost our resort thousands of dollars just to fix it. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I work at a resort restaurant. Our resort has around 6 restaurants, with 3 of them also operating pool bars during the summer months. About 2 years ago or so, my coworker's husband, who we will call Dave, witnessed the before and after of a really bizarre situation that quite literally resulted in a pool and a bar getting shut down for the whole weekend. Dave worked in the engineering department for our resort and was given the job to do some maintenance on the pool before it opened in a few hours. As he walked in, tools in hand, he noticed a group of men and women in the pool. Now, them being there was beyond strange because the pool's gates were closed, so only select employees could access it, meaning that these people had jumped the fence to get in. He also noticed the closer he got to them that they were drinking beer from glass bottles, and the women were entirely topless. Dave would then tell my coworker that a few of these guys were looking at these women like hungry wolves, which was really gross to think about. They were also all visibly drunk and very loud. Dave walked up to the group and told them that they weren't supposed to be there and that they needed to leave, but they just kind of brushed him off and said it was fine. Well, Dave didn't want to start any trouble, so he just said that they need to leave before the pool opened and staff showed up, and then he walked away to do what he was supposed to do in the main building. And seriously, to this day, I don't understand why he didn't call security or someone right then and there. Now, I can't remember how long he was gone for, but when he came out, the group of people were gone. However, what was left behind were countless shards of shattered glass all around, as well as inside the pool itself. It was glass of all different colors littering the pool's floor and around the edges. Dave's theory was that the women probably got fed up with the men staring at them, and this resulted in bottles being thrown. They probably left right after that, most likely because even in their drunk states, they either realized that swimming in broken glass wasn't safe, or that they would be royally screwed if they got caught. Now, whether or not it was true, how else would so much glass end up in the pool? Dave immediately called security, and the police got involved, since the broken glass was considered vandalism. Unfortunately, by this point, the entire group was long gone, and at the time, there was no functioning camera, so no suspects could be identified. I mean, no one even knew if they were guests at the resort or people who just lived nearby. So these people just basically got away with it. It took the resort an entire weekend to clean the pool, as it had to be drained, scrubbed from top to bottom, and then filled manually before it could be safely reopened for service again. It was supposed to be a really busy weekend, and this particular pool was a staple of the resort, meaning that this group cost our resort possibly thousands of dollars. Now, I actually didn't know about this story until the day afterwards. On the day of, I was supposed to work a shift at my pool, and unfortunately for me, not only did my bartender call in sick with no substitute, but I was also the only other employee scheduled that day. So I was completely on my own, and I had to deal with a much larger crowd as best as possible. I did have some bartending experience I learned from my coworkers, but I still struggled to keep up on my own, and we didn't have enough staff to spare that day. It was rough, but I made it through. However, ever since then, I've become very strict about glass being anywhere near my pool ever since. Also, on top of that, about a year after that, working cameras were installed at every pool. Aside from this incident, I think there were others that led to it being enforced, but still, it's nice to have just in case. Now, I know it should be obvious why shattered glass doesn't belong in an area where 90% of its inhabitants usually walk barefoot, but please, for the sake of everybody around you, don't ever bring glass into a pool. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Dave didn't call the cops or security of some kind, because seriously, those people had glass bottles around a pool. Like, that is a surefire way to get cut up immediately, because there is no good excuse for the way that group was acting. My entitled coworker says he's going to sue the company, all because he thinks it's unfair that I get to charge my electric car at work. And I've honestly never been more blown away by someone's stupidity in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my 60-year-old coworker drives a huge truck. I recently took the plunge and got a mini electric SUV, and ever since then, he calls me the fridge driver, which is kind of funny, I'll give him that. Once, I forgot to charge at home and arrived at work with 22% battery. I noticed an outlet very close to my parking spot, so I took the charger to see if it was connected, and much to my surprise, it worked. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I emailed the facilities team asking for permission just in case, and they pretty much said, well, we don't really care, please don't email us. Now, my parking spot was very close to the entrance, and my entitled old coworker, we'll call him Jack for the sake of the story, that's not his real name, uses a cane and parks at the very end of the garage. In fact, I switched spots with him, and he's been very nice to me ever since. And trust me, this part's gonna be important later on. I charge my car twice a week on average, so I've been getting free mobility for about 6 months. Another coworker got an F-150 Lightning, and I was telling her over lunch that she could use my parking spot on the days that I'm not there. For reference, I only go to the office twice a week. And when I said this, my entitled coworker was also there too. I went to show her where the outlet was, and Jack decided to tag along. The whole time, he said to me, "Hey, this used to be my parking spot." My friend was low on battery, and my car was already full, so we switched spots right there. Jack was making jokes that she drives a more manly car than I do, and he asked questions about how much money we were saving. I said about $80 a week, and my coworker said she used to spend about $100 a week, and this will be a life changer. Now, what followed next is probably the weirdest man-child behavior I've ever seen in my life. For starters, he emailed pictures of both cars charging to my supervisor, asking if this was allowed. And when I was contacted, I showed my supervisor the email from the facilities team. Eventually, Jack demanded to have his spot back. My manager checked with me if I was okay sharing the spot, also Jack could charge his car, which I knew was a complete lie, so I told him that he drives a Dodge Ram, it's not electric. He then proceeded to ask for a $5,000 $1,000 a year gift card just so he could go to the gas station so he could commute to work for free. Eventually, he filed a complaint with HR stating that he's being oppressed all because he doesn't have an electric car. He also goes daily to take pictures of whichever car is charging in the spot, and he stopped talking to us altogether, not even saying good morning. And to top it all off, he said he was going to sue the company after HR rejected his claim. So overall, I'm honestly sick of Jack, and I hope he never bothers me ever again. Yeah, I'm gonna be brutally honest and say that Jack sounds like an idiot. Like, this guy's seriously trying to act like the world is against him, all because he doesn't have an electric car. Like, seriously, what is wrong with this guy? Like, the original poster is just trying to charge their car. This literally does not affect his life in the slightest. So yeah, I hope the original poster doesn't have to deal with Jack either, because this guy sounds like an absolute nightmare. Am I the jerk for telling my wife's family that they can't cook with us in our Airbnb simply because they bailed on our plan of getting an Airbnb as a group in the first place? Because right now they're calling me greedy and unreasonable, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I have 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and my wife has 2 siblings. She has one brother who lives in California and a sister who's married with 3 kids all under 10 and both of her parents. We are pretty close with my wife's family. We spend a lot of time with them, and all the kids and cousins get along super well. So I think it's safe to say that I have a very good relationship with everybody. The brother is getting married later this summer in Southern California, and the rest of the family, including us, live in the Midwest, and we've planned a big 7-night family vacation down to SoCal for the wedding. So I proposed to the family, namely the 4 of us, my sister-in-law's family, and my wife's parents, to rent out a house for 7 nights while we will be in SoCal. Now, there were some really good reasons as to why we should do this. For starters, there would be more space for everybody instead of living out of a suitcase in a hotel for 7 nights. Also, we would have a kitchen available instead of eating out every single night. My son also has a severe anaphylactic allergy to nuts, so eating out can often be stressful for us as a family. Now, initially, everyone was on board. I estimated that renting a large enough house via Airbnb would be approximately $300 a night per family unit. So basically, $900 a night split 3 ways. Now, there are cheaper ones, but they would be too far from the wedding venue. Now, my sister-in-law and my in-laws learned very quickly that hotel rooms are available for approximately $150 a night. And since finding out about that, they've now bailed on the house idea and have reserved their own hotel rooms. But you know what? It's their money, and I understand that renting a house is a lot of money to pay above the hotel rates. So I honestly have no issue with them changing their mind. My wife and I still want to stay in a house, mainly for access to a full kitchen, so we decided to book an Airbnb. The smaller house will cost us about $350 a night, so we'll be spending about $350 more than planned. Now, we've booked the Airbnb, and the free cancellation period has now expired, meaning that we can't cancel without losing money. When my wife's family learned that we booked an Airbnb, they said to us, "Oh great, we can come to your house and cook some food." But I said to them, no. If you wanted to cook, then you should have reserved a house with us, and not make us pay the extra for accommodations with a kitchen, and then try to take advantage of that. If you want to use the kitchen, cover the extra $50 a night that we have to pay, and then you can use it. Well, when I said that, they said I was being unreasonable and greedy. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because right now, I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Yeah, your extended family is being super toxic right now. You mean to tell me they waited until you bought the Airbnb just to then turn around and be like, "Oh yeah, can we come over to cook?" Like, no, you can't come over and cook. Are you kidding me right now? We spent so much money trying to get it set up, and you guys straight up bailed to go to a hotel. Like, that's not fair in the slightest. So in my opinion, I think what you're asking is completely reasonable, because I think your wife's family is acting super entitled. An entitled Karen screams at me at work after she makes a mistake when leaving a tip for our restaurant. She even screamed at me so much that I almost started crying, and I'm honestly so sick of dealing with entitled Karens like this. Here's what happened. Okay, so at the time I was 18 years old, and I was working at a fast food place. I've only ever seen one of these specific places in my life, but I won't give away the name just in case. But just to give you the basic idea, its food is Italian, which means it's mostly pasta. Sure, we had pizza slices, breadsticks, and salads, but we mostly had pasta dishes. Now, I always worked the closing shift from 5 to 10, which really went from 5 to 11, with all the things that had to be done for closing. Now, I want to say that at about this point, it was around the middle of my shift, or maybe in the first half. I always worked up front, taking orders and running out food for tables. It was business as usual, meal, and then a woman walked in. And yes, dear readers, this is the entitled Karen of the story in the wild. I welcomed her in with my typical, "Hi, welcome to our restaurant. What can I get for you?" She ordered her meal and things went well. I think the total was maybe $10 or around that range. I then rattled off the phrase that's been burned into my brain. I asked her, "Would you like to leave a tip?" Now, when I asked that, surprisingly, she said yes. There were no red flags yet, so I continued. I say to her, "Alrighty, press 1, 2, or 3 on the keypad, then press the green button after that." I watched as she pushed the buttons in that order. Now, the buttons correspond to different tip amounts. The number 1 was for $1, 2 was for $3, and 3 was for $5. So, since she pressed 3 as the final button, it meant that she gave a $5 tip. And after I gave her the receipt, this is where things get really messy. She inspected it intently and then started complaining about how much she had tipped. She said to me, "I am not giving you a $5 tip for a $10 purchase. I pay your salary and this is ridiculous." Now, I was trying to explain that she hadn't listened to what I had said, that I had said 1, 2, or 3, not 1, 2, and 3. Well, this back and forth continued, and some of my coworkers even came to defend me, saying that I have very clear instructions. Some more back and forth happened, and the manager was called to settle this dispute. Now, he was busy, so it would take him a minute or two, but during that time, this entitled Karen stared me directly in the eyes and said to me, "I don't like your awful attitude." I said to her, "Excuse me?" And I was obviously completely shocked. And being as shocked and angry as I was, I felt tears in my eyes because I cry when I'm really angry. Anyways, my manager finally got there and settled this issue. And this is definitely one of those situations that I will never forget. Honestly, I can't stand it when customers don't follow simple instructions, especially when it's on a screen and it's very simple. Like seriously, you shouldn't have to explain to her exactly what button to press. She should just be able to look at the screen and be like, "Okay, what do I want to do?" Like she's sitting there and acting like you somehow tricked her into pressing the wrong button. Also, the fact that she was projecting on you and saying to you, "Oh man, I don't like your bad attitude." Like seriously, lady, you're the only one here with a bad attitude. And I can also say I relate with the original poster because I've been there as well. I've been around customers who have been so nasty that they make me feel like absolute garbage, and they are literally the worst things in the world to deal with. Because seriously, this entitled Karen was completely out of line, and you did not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. An entitled couple make me cry at the restaurant I was working at as they screamed and shouted at me, all because their food wasn't ready on the busiest day of the year for us. But thankfully, my manager had my back as he came back at these people harder than I've ever seen anybody get put in their place in my life, because the way they acted was so unacceptable. And I'm just so glad that I have a manager who has my back. Here's what happened. Okay, so this all went down on Mother's Day. It's the busiest day of the year for my restaurant and many others. It is so busy that we will have numerous parties as well as countless floor tables. We are all assigned parties at the beginning of the shift and then expected to take the walk in the parties. And the entire morning there was a line to the door. Now, because this was Mother's Day, that line lasted literally all day long. I was in the weeds the entire shift, and it's a long shift for us. I mean, we will be there for at least 12 hours. I finish a 3-top with a $3 tip, a 6-top with a $5 tip, and then I finish a group of 9 that give me a great tip. Well, in comes a group of 6 people, so I take them. Then I have to take a group of 8 people behind them, and then 11 besides the 8. Now, this is fine and dandy, except the kitchen is really backed up. They had been behind since square one, and we have a lot of newbies working today. Well, I burst into tears because my 6-top was really passive aggressive and really wanted to get their food, but it had taken nearly 45 minutes for basic entrees. Now, I'm not angry with the cooks because they're cooking a lot of food all day long, but it is absolutely stressful regardless. I finally get them their food, and the guy at the table murmurs about a 3rd refill. The dude spilt his drink earlier, and his eyelids were barely open. He can't even speak above a mumble. Well, I guess prior to this jerk got angry and started to look around the restaurant for me, despite me telling him that it was insanely busy. And I've been in the kitchen 3 separate times to look for the food, but that the cooks were just completely swamped. Mind you, all of us are running circles, and we have more tables and customers than we can handle. The owner, who is in his 80s, we'll call him Bob for the sake of the story, was standing next to our busser, who we will call Frodo. Bob and Frodo are not their real names. Well, this big jerk comes out of the room, and Bob thinks he's looking for the bathroom. The big guy mumbles something, and Bob just laughs and says okay because he couldn't hear him. Bob then looks over to Frodo, and he's like, "Wait, what did he say?" Well, Frodo was all like, "Bob, he was cursing at you. He said, 'I'm not looking looking for the bathroom. I'm looking for my server. She absolutely sucks. So fast forward and I get the salads out for the 8 top and I'm about to take drinks to the 11 top, but I stop to make sure that these jerks are good. I walk up and I ask them, "Are you guys doing all right? Can I grab you anything?" Well, one lady, who we will call the cheese lady, she said to me, "Yeah, you can grab the cheese I asked for 15 times, literally 15 minutes ago." Now let's pause for a second. That's one cheese request per minute. So yeah, that's a lot of requests. Next, I don't need this lady being condescending. We servers have it rough on Mother's Day. It is not my intention to not bring you everything you ask for every 5 seconds. It's simply the fact that I'm waiting on multiple large tables, all of which are angry to oblivion because they waited in line for an hour only to then be seated and wait another hour for their food to come up. And also, when it comes to this stupid cheese lady, she would scream at me and be like, "My God, he needs a refill. My food is cold." But like, as a side note, her food wasn't cold. I was crying when they finally handed it to me, and I legit waited until they had it in tears. So at this point, much like Mob and Mob Boss has his crazy meter, my crazy meter had hit the 100% jackpot of pure rage and adrenaline. I looked at her straight in her angry, boiling eyes, and I straight up said, "Ma'am, it's almost like it's the busiest day of the year." The cheese lady then said to me, "You can get your stupid attitude out of here." She then starts cussing and shrieking, while also making indistinguishable shrieks of faux success at making a server cry. So I just start pouring tears as I do. I mean, I was so done, man. Legit worked my butt off to get 2 really crappy tips, and then get cussed out by someone who looks like she's never worked a day in her life. And I'm not trying to stereotype. I just mean that these people have clearly never worked food. Well, Frodo tells me what they said earlier and tells me to go tell Bob. I go to Bob and I tell them what they said and even what I said, and he says to me, "Wait right here, I'm gonna take care of it." So I hide out in the office wiping my face as I hear the mean table screaming at him from down the hall. Then Bob pulls up on the big jerk from earlier. Bob screams at this guy and says, "Were you born to be rude?" The big jerk looks at him and says, "Are you kidding me? My wife is the one who spoke to her, not me." Bob then says, "That doesn't matter. You don't treat our staff like that here." The cheese lady says, "Well, you didn't have to push me either." Now this was literally out of left field because Bob never even touched that lady. And Bob says as much when he says, "I never laid a hand on you." And here's the thing. We had multiple gawkers and 2 bussers confirm that she was full of it. Eventually, they were then forced to leave, and Bob let me wait on his family, and they tipped me really nice, and I cried happy tears. Now, you might think this is the end of it, but trust me, it definitely wasn't. They ended up leaving a really annoying review on Google, so that inspired me to post my experience online. The owner and I were called hateful, and she is still mad about the cheese that she didn't get. It's my first bad review in the 2.5 years that I've worked here. Also, Bob comped the entire meal of the poor souls that had to sit next to them, and they said he did the right thing. So I hope that your Mother's Day wasn't as crazy as mine, because what I went through is something I hope I never go through ever again. Wow, the jerk and the cheese lady absolutely were so far out of line, it's not even funny. Like, who in their right mind would act like that over food on the busiest day of the year? Like, are they seriously gonna walk around and be like, "Wow, where's my food?" and then not look up and be like, "Oh yeah, the restaurant is full of people." It's almost like they sat down for dinner and then they just completely forgot that they stood in line for an hour. People like this are so obnoxious and I just can't stand them, but at least you have a good manager who has your back. Bob sounds like an absolute powerhouse. He sounds like one of those owners who really does keep like a low profile, but when it comes time to stand up for his employees, he actually has a spine and does exactly that. He puts these customers in their place and he doesn't allow anybody to put his employees down. So truly, I'm sorry you went through that, and hopefully nothing like that ever happens to you ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I am so tired of old entitled jerks cutting in line, and after encountering it so many times in my life, I am simply amazed by how entitled someone actually can be. Here's what happened. Okay, so this has been a problem that my husband and I have encountered for years, but yesterday we experienced 2 incidents of it. We went to the farmer's market and I was standing in line to get some peaches. There's one lady ahead of me talking to the farmer, and suddenly this old entitled jerk walks up beside the lady in front of me, looks impatient, completely ignores me, and then butts in and just starts asking the farmer stupid questions. He's clearly about to slide in when the lady ahead of me leaves, and my husband and I both stare at him and make it very obvious that we know what he's doing. The lady ahead of me finishes her purchases and then leaves, and the entitled old jerk sees us looking at him and reluctantly barks and says, "Go ahead."
ahead. And he says it in an irritated tone. Now, I said nothing and made my purchase while he hovered impatiently behind me. And last week, we were in the same line when an old entitled couple deliberately got in front of us in line. We laughed and said, really? And they just completely ignored us. After the farmer's market, we decided to get brunch. We were in line to see the waitress put our name in for a table. Well, 3 old entitled women attempt to cut in line in front of us. A bystander sees what they were trying to do, and they loudly said, hey, are you guys in line for a table? We say yes, and the old entitled jerks begrudgingly move behind us after they got called out. Now, these are just the most recent cases, but it happens all the time, and it's often very deliberate. We were at a cafe once when an old entitled woman pretended to be looking in the bakery cases and then rapidly cut in line in front of us. My husband politely told her where the line started, and she threw a fit and denied cutting line. And of course, naturally, an entitled employee, who I'm pretty sure was the owner, who was also the same age as this entitled old woman, came over and took her side, allowing her to stay where she was. Another instance is from a year ago, where I was in line at my coffee shop, and 2 very loud old entitled jerks walked in. They saw the line, they frowned, they whispered to each other, and then they crept up and pretended to be reading a newspaper on the counter. They then slid in front of me and ordered a bunch of stuff, asking a bunch of stupid questions. I mean, I just wanted a coffee. The teenage employer was too afraid to say anything, but I decided to do the same thing because they looked like the type that would go absolutely crazy and cry victim if I called out their actions. So is anyone else noticing this phenomenon? I mean, it drives me so insane. It's almost like they think they're above standing in line for things just like other people, and it honestly drives me nuts. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think there are moments where I've noticed this similar thing, and it really usually does come from the older crowd who act super entitled anytime they see a line. It's almost like they think they're above the line and that they shouldn't have to wait for anything. And obviously, this isn't a grand sweeping statement, but I have definitely seen this from older people much more than any other group of people. So no, the original poster is definitely not crazy, because I think this happens way more than any of us realize. Am I the jerk for telling my family to stop obsessing over my half-brother's decisions? Because after he left the family and rejected pretty much everybody, they are now absolutely obsessed with getting some kind of karma revenge against him so that he can feel the exact way that they felt when he left. Because honestly, their attitude is really obnoxious, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I have a half-brother who is in his mid to late 30s. I also have 2 older brothers who are 25 and 26. We don't have a relationship with our half-brother, who is my dad's child from his first wife. Dad was a widower, and my mom came into our lives 3.5 years after my brother's mom passed away. My half-brother never liked my mom, and according to my brothers, he was always super clear that mom would never mean anything to him, and he used to say some pretty nasty stuff to mom, which dad would never take well. In fact, their earliest memories are a lot of chaos and fights. I don't really remember living with him or seeing him, but what I do remember of him wasn't pleasant, and I knew he did not want us for siblings. My family, both extended and my parents, always said that he would grow up and regret treating mom like garbage, that he would be a step-parent himself in the future, or becoming a parent would teach him some kind of lesson. Now, why they were so certain he would want to marry and have kids, I have no idea, but they were always so positive that he would end up as a step-parent and would end up with biological kids as well. Well, my brothers and I always just accepted that we were a 3-person sibling set and we were not a 4-person sibling set, and we never expected a relationship with him or his family. Well, I guess some of the extended family know he's married now, and he has 3 kids of his own, but he isn't a step-parent. And this annoyed some of them so much because they really felt like he needed to become a step-parent, but mom was really heartbroken that he could become a dad and settle down as a husband and a father, and still hate her so much to not want anything to do with her or with us. My dad's really weird around old family photos now, and especially the photos of him and his first wife with our half-brother that they have in their living room. My brothers and I stayed with our parents for a few nights last week, and when the extended family came over, my half-brother became a topic of conversation, and again, it was about him being married with kids and how bothered they are that he didn't come around because of that, and again, with the disappointment that he wasn't taught a lesson by becoming a stepdad. Well, after hearing this for so long, I told them that they need to get over what's going on in his life because we are not a part of it, and everyone just needs to accept it. I also said they were talking like jerks by wishing him to be miserable and to have a hard life. Like, it just doesn't make them look so great. My brothers agree with me, and so did my mom. But everybody else, even my dad, was sitting there saying that they had every right to be disappointed by how how things worked out, and that I'm taking stuff out of context. So honestly, am I the jerk for speaking up and telling them to basically shut up? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. These people seriously have an unhealthy obsession with this half-brother, and it all comes down to the fact that he doesn't want anything to do with any of you. It seems like you and your brothers have accepted it, and you've kind of like moved on and you want to try to move on, but the rest of your family is just repeating this over and over again. Like seriously, get a grip, it doesn't matter anymore. This guy is not in your life, and he literally will never be in your life ever again probably. Like just because somebody wronged you in some kind of way, doesn't mean you're gonna get some karma revenge where they get to experience what you experienced. Like I bet you the half-brother hasn't even thought about this side of his family in a very long time. He probably doesn't obsess over these people, who I'm willing to bet were probably not very nice people to him in the first place. And this is coming based off of their attitude, by the way. I'm willing to bet that they had some awful traits as well that probably led the half-brother into moving away from this family altogether. That's not a fact, I'm literally just making an assumption, but their attitude and the way they're going about this and like not letting it go kind of leads me to believe that they have some things wrong that they definitely need to work on. So no, you're not the jerk for speaking up, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. These people were getting obnoxious, and if I was in your shoes, I would get very sick of hearing that very quickly. I absolutely hate the company that I work for, as they are constantly leaving us understaffed and refuse to hire anybody else to help us get our work done. And I'm now at my breaking point, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I just need to say that I hate the company I work for. We are just constantly understaffed. Today was my brother's graduation, and it was so hot, and everyone has been getting sick recently, and I was so dizzy and disoriented that I almost passed out. I was going to call off, and I don't call off unless I have to, but my managers told me to take a cold shower and come in because we only had 3 servers scheduled. And trust me, it was a rough shift. And this was with half the staff we normally have, but it could have been way worse, and thankfully it wasn't too crazy. I have a splitting headache and almost fainted multiple times during the shift though. We don't have nearly enough cooks or servers, and we now have a bartender who can do nights, and half the nights that I work this week, we have no bartender. The day bartenders are awesome, but the one who is left who is trained and available for nights is so lazy. Our old bartender left as soon as she got another job offer, and seriously, good for her. They worked her to the bone because she was the only one with the availability. But now we have no one, and they don't hire anybody else. And if they do, they don't even last a month because they either quit or they get fired. I just hate this company so much, and I've been mass applying to so many places, but I haven't gotten a call back at all, which sucks because I'd assume that someone would be hiring more since it is the busier season. I'm so desperate that at this point, I think I might go check out a chain restaurant if they hire me, because right now this really sucks and I don't know what to do. Man, I don't blame you for trying to find a new job, especially when you're working for one who's like, oh, you're really sick and you don't feel well? Just take a cold shower and come in anyways. We don't care that you're dizzy and you can't walk. Come into work anyways. Like seriously, what are they doing? Like I'm right there with the original poster. I can't stand when we're understaffed and I'm trying to get a job done. Like you're putting unnecessary pressure on the people who actually stick around, and you're only going to cause more people to quit. Like if you have enough people to handle the workload in front of you, then everybody else around you deeply benefits. And I'm talking from like the bottom up. So truly, I hope you get out of there sooner than later, because this does not sound like a healthy work environment at all. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would be doing the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for not accommodating my new neighbor's reactive dog simply because my neighbor was incredibly insulting and very condescending? Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in the deep south in the deep country, and things are a little bit different here than they are in the city. I own about 80 acres of pastures and timber, but my house is near the road. Most of my neighbors are on smaller plots of 2 to 10 acres, and I have my front yard fenced in for my dogs. I have a sheepdog and a mini Aussie, and then my livestock in the back. The road is narrow but straight, and most of the occasional traffic is loud, fast-logging trucks. The fence for my yard is set about 25 feet from the road. There's a drainage ditch and a good old 15 feet of mowed, shady, grassy strip. Now, I apologize for the length of the setup here, but it will be important later on to try and explain why this person was where she was. This morning, I went to let my dogs out, and I found a lady walking a huge gray pit bull looking dog right up against my fence. And of course, my dogs started barking as they should when a strange dog is on the property. The other dog reacted very poorly. Now, of course, I called my dogs back into the house, and then I went back out to see what was going on. Well, when I got out there, my yard is full of dog toys, and this wouldn't be the first time someone has come to ask if a stray dog lived here. When I went
headed back outside, the lady was standing and pointing to her dog. In an authoritative tone, she said to me, "He is reactive." And I said that I could see that. She then looked at me like I was simple. She said to me, "So you have to make accommodations for him." Well, this is where she completely lost me. I come to find out that she just moved into a little rental house down the road on the corner of someone's property. Her dog is recovering from knee surgery and needs to be walked a certain distance every single day. She expects me to go down my driveway out the gate and onto the road to look up and down and make sure she isn't coming every time I let my dogs out during the day. As she was talking, her dog was snuffling around at the base of my fence and found a bully stick that my dog had dropped right on the other side of the wire and slurped it through the fence and swallowed it. She then looked at me and said, "Oh my God, that better not be beef. He's allergic to beef. You can't just leave stuff like that laying around." Well, when she said that, that's right about when I had had enough. I said to her, "Ma'am, do you see that ditch right there? Everything on this side of it is my property. You are not welcome on my property. I need you to please leave immediately because you are trespassing." She said she couldn't walk in the road because of the trucks, and I told her that wasn't my problem. She headed back the way that she came, and I waited until she left before I let my dogs back out. Now, I feel like I could have been more accommodating if she hadn't been so abrasive towards me. I mean, maybe we could have worked out a time every day where I would keep my dogs in so she could walk by for an hour or so. But you know what? I don't like being told what I can and can't do on my own property, and I feel like giving her any concession would just pave the way for more demands. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for not being more accommodating? No, you are definitely not the jerk. This lady walked up and acted super entitled. She not only brought her reactive dog near your dogs, which by the way, if your dog acts up around other dogs, why on earth would you walk them right up to the fence of other dogs? Like, that just seems really stupid, and that's a good way for one of the dogs to get hurt. But also, why on earth would she start to bark demands at you as if she has some kind of control over your property? Like, that is ridiculous, and there's no good excuse for that. In fact, the original poster goes on to explain in the comment section that they literally try to be neighborly, and that if she had just introduced herself and her dog, and maybe, I don't know, apologized for his behavior, instead of coming to them with all of these demands, they would have been happy to work something out with them. And honestly, if I was in their shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Just a little bit of kindness and humility, or at least like some semblance of like, hey, let's work this out, would have taken this situation into a different place. Like, she led off the conversation by being super hostile towards the original poster, and for literally no reason. It would have been easy to be kinder and nice in the situation, and that's like the lowest barrier of entry that anyone could possibly ask for. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for bowing down to this stupid Karen neighbor. Her accommodations were really just demands, and I bet that Pitbull is only reactive because that lady is a terrible dog owner, and I really think that if you gave her an inch, this lady would have happily taken a mile. My parents are forcing me to leave my girlfriend solely because she has a medical condition that would cause her to possibly have cancer in the future. And now, after giving me the ultimatum that if I don't leave her, they're gonna kick me out of the family, I'm left wondering what the right move is. Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I, who are both 25, have been together for more than 6 years. We survived a long-distance relationship for the first 3 years and had an amazing relationship for the subsequent 3 years. She is my best friend, my closest confidant, and we cannot imagine our lives without each other. We rarely ever argue, and our personality complements each other. And our friends too always said that we are a perfect couple. Essentially, she's the perfect one for me. Initially, my parents loved her as well. They always showered her with gifts and really supported us being together. In fact, my parents had been nagging us to get married soon. However, my girlfriend is the carrier of a gene mutation, which basically means she has a higher risk of getting breast cancer and ovarian cancer in the future. I am well aware of her condition, and I am ready to support her and walk with her as her future husband. We planned everything we needed to do, such as getting IVF done to prevent the gene from being passed down, and her getting her breast removed to prevent cancer from developing. Well, unfortunately, I decided to tell my parents about my girlfriend's gene mutation, hoping to get their understanding and support. However, they did not take it lightly. My mom threw a massive fit and demanded me to leave my girlfriend immediately. Essentially, they don't want my girlfriend to be imperfect, and they don't want me to potentially suffer from taking care of my girlfriend in the future, such as bringing her to hospital appointments and all this other stuff. They also said that the cost of IVF and her treatment can be very expensive. My girlfriend had been really heartbroken because of this, but she is still willing to put up with my parents parents if it means us getting married and being together. Today, my mom has placed an ultimatum on me. Either leave my girlfriend or be disowned by them. I love my girlfriend too much, and I can't imagine breaking up with her. I also do feel it is way too crucial to leave my girlfriend just because of her genetic predisposition to cancer. So right now, I'm at a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first off, anytime anybody gives me an ultimatum, that for me is a giant red flag. Like, why would they put that kind of pressure on you and basically be like, okay, you can either choose her or you're gonna be disowned? Like, where do they have the right to decide what you can and cannot do with your girlfriend? Or who you can and cannot date? Last I checked, this is 2024, you could do whatever you want. So the fact that they're like, if you don't break up with them, we're gonna kick you out of the family. Like, that is disgusting, and there is no good excuse for that. They're trying to control your life, and that is not fair. Because here's the thing, she could very easily not get cancer, and she could live a long and happy life just like anybody else. Like, it sounds like the two of you really love each other. So on that end, it's honestly crazy to me that your parents would be like, oh, you better break up with her or else it's over. And to me, this is a really good insight to how your parents actually are, because on the inside, they're judgmental and they really do want to control your life. So I know if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever break up with my girlfriend, especially over the threat of getting disowned by my toxic parents. Like, if they want to play that game, then let's play that game. You want to kick me out of the family because I love my girlfriend and I want to stand next to her through cancer possibly? Then fine, kick me out. Like, I would be more than willing to call their bluff, because that's exactly what I think it is. They're bluffing to see if you'll just get out of this relationship. That way they don't have to deal with it later on. So you know what? In my opinion, I would not listen to your parents at all, and I would listen to what you and your girlfriend want to do, because you guys are fully grown adults and you know exactly what you guys want. And if you want to be together with your girlfriend, regardless of whatever gene mutation might be going on in her body, then in my opinion, by all means, I think that you should go for it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend won't care for my cats while I'm traveling, despite the fact that I cared for his animals while he was gone. And now, after stressing over this situation for so long, I am now very upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 months, and I have 2 cats and 1 dog. 2 weeks ago, he asked me to watch his dog at his house while he was gone for 4 days. He preferred me to stay the night at his place so his dog wouldn't be alone. I got to bring my dog and they were able to play a bunch. I went back and forth between our houses, which is like 20 minutes apart, just so I could care for my cats and spend some time with them every day. And this is also while managing my work schedule. I work 8 hours a day, plus extra work on the weekends. I work physically demanding jobs outside of my home. It was a lot to manage, but I'm happy to do it because I love him and his dog. And in contrast, he works from home 3 days a week at a desk job. Well, it's now my turn to travel. I'll be gone for 6 days, and I knew it would be a lot for him to handle, but he agreed to check in on the cats. I asked a good friend to handle feeding and litter boxes and medications every day. That way, my boyfriend would only have to spend time with them and love on them. I said every other day for a couple of hours would be fine, but he's now walked this back, telling me he needs exact times to come and that he can only come in the evenings, which honestly is totally fine. He also then said that it doesn't make sense for him to come at all because he feels my friend will be there anyways. He's wondering now what the point is of him even coming over in the first place. Now, my friend is doing me a huge favor. She has a young child, and she is in her last week of school for the year as a teacher. She has limited free time, but even she is happy to stop by quickly to take care of their basic needs. All I want is for him to comfort them occasionally so they're not alone. And this is also on top of the fact that my older cat has some recent medical issues. Now, she is fine and she will be fine, but I'm hoping to monitor any symptoms. And this is really why I asked for his presence. And to be completely fair, he is watching my dog at his house. So honestly, am I overreacting here? I just put a lot of effort into caring for his dog, and it feels like he's not reciprocating in the way that I would have hoped. He tells me that I should let him know what I need, but when I do, he just tells me why it's pointless and not convenient for him. I have a hard time understanding others, and I want to make sure that I'm not going off a ledge, because right now I'm very hurt and I just don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, it is really unfair that he's not reciprocating this in some kind of way. Like, if I spend all that time taking care of his animals and loving them and giving them company and all this other good stuff you would expect, then why on earth can he not go over there and spend, I don't know, an hour with the cats? Or just like sit around and like play with them or something? Like, sure, it's not their basic needs of having food
food and water, but it would at least help for the 6 days that the original poster is gonna be gone. Like, you're not even asking him to do anything hard. He literally just has to show up and be there with the cats. Like, that's it. There's really no other legwork he has to do. And he's really gonna sit there and be like, oh, this is too much. Like, why should I? So no, I don't think you're overreacting at all, because those cats deserve some love and attention. And if he really cared about the situation at all, he would happily do it instead of giving you an attitude. Am I the jerk for choosing to refuse service to a creepy customer, as he's come up to my bar every single time just to order water? And I'm now at my wit's end dealing with this weirdo that I now seriously don't know what to do. I'm a 25-year-old female and I work as a bartender in a massive building that can hold up to 1,500 people. Well, there's this one guy who's 26 years old that likes to come in and demand water from me. Typically, since the building is so big and making waters for everyone who asks for them would mean like 100 waters a day, I just hand them a cup and politely direct them to the soda machine. My place of work doesn't really care if I don't charge for a $5 soda, so I just tell them to go get whatever they want for the inconvenience of having to get it for yourself. So anyways, this guy has come in a few times and has been so rude and passive aggressive for me handing him a cup. The first time he came in and didn't order alcohol, and he asked for a water and then said, "What? You're not gonna fill it for me?" And he's done this about 4 times when he's come in, and has had this attitude that he's entitled to me grabbing him his water, and has been so weirdly argumentative about it. And it's in a way that almost feels like he's trying to flirt poorly. Now, normally I don't even mind getting people water as long as they're chilling at the bar, because it makes sense for me that they're sitting down near me. It basically says that you want proper service and you might order something later on or something like that. It's also not abnormal for bars to have water stations themselves, so I don't understand why this is such a big deal for him. This last time he came in, he called me lazy and told me he wanted me to do my job and just grab him a water. So I grabbed it for him, very angry, uncomfortable, and frustrated. He had 2 friends with him, and in my frustration, I asked if they were 21 years old, and when they said no, I told them they wouldn't be able to sit at the bar, so just go ahead and get rid of them. I have a feeling that he's coming back because he has so many times now, and the next time he does, I'm just gonna tell him to get lost, because his aggressiveness and his weirdness about it is really enough to make me uncomfortable. So I'm really curious if everyone else thinks I'm being unreasonable, because I rarely ever refuse service. And with this guy, I think I've tried everything under the book, and I'm still coming up empty-handed. What should I do? I honestly don't blame you for denying this guy service, because the way he's acting is really creepy. It definitely seems like he's doing this on purpose, and almost like he's trying to exact some kind of power over you. Like, that's really the vibe I'm getting, and that's really creepy in my opinion. So no, I don't blame you for refusing him service in the future, because this guy is acting incredibly weird. Am I the jerk for accidentally getting my neighbor evicted after I reported them for throwing trash off the balcony into the woods? Because right now I feel really bad, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner and I have been in our current apartment for 4 years. We had a new upstairs neighbor move in about 1 year ago, and right away, I began noticing tons of cigarette butts and ash on my balcony. For the first few weeks or so, I would just sweep them up myself, as I don't really like confrontation, but eventually it started getting worse. I would find lit cigarettes and cigarette butts, and in fact, one of them burned a hole in our chair cushion, which is a major fire hazard, but we would also find teeth flossers, food items, and other trash. Once, when they were out on their deck, my fiance shouted up at them, asking if they could please stop dumping their stuff down here. They later talked to us and said they accidentally dropped them, but we really didn't buy that, because there were so many and the variety of stuff that was there. Well, fast forward a couple of months, and we began seeing large bags full of trash being thrown down into the woods below, oftentimes with trash falling out of the bags and landing onto our porch. Anyways, we saw this happening pretty often, at least once a week. We asked them again, please stop throwing trash, but they actually denied it, claiming that they never threw any trash. They're on the top floor, so unless someone is living on the roof, it's not them. It's also important to note that our downstairs neighbor also gets tons of garbage, cigarettes, and cereal on their balcony, and they are just as frustrated as we are. Anyways, the upstairs completely deny throwing the trash ever, but the evidence is so visible. If you look down off of our balcony, you would find bags and trash and all this other stuff. Plus, our downstairs neighbor and us have seen it being thrown with our own eyes. The downstairs neighbors got really mad and decided to go up and full on yell at them. Now, I don't condone this, but I was really hoping that they would finally stop. Well, when they did get yelled at, they had this big dramatic reaction
reaction. They said to the neighbor, "Okay, I'm sorry, I had no idea, it'll never happen again." But then, cue to the next day, where we see trash being thrown off again, with some landing on our balcony. I finally sent a complaint to our apartment manager because it was very frustrating, and I was tired of interacting with them. And that finally leads us to today. My partner and I get back from a date, and they're outside packing things up. They said to us, "Just so you know, I've been given a 30-day notice to vacate. I told you I didn't throw anything." And when they said that, I'm really shocked. I didn't want them to get kicked out. More of a fine or stern talking to, just so they would finally stop. Before that, we had someone awful above us that the management literally wouldn't do anything about. So I'm really dumbfounded that they would kick someone out over this. So am I the jerk for accidentally getting my neighbors evicted? Because I never meant for something like this to happen, and right now I feel really bad. No, you are definitely not the jerk, and I would not feel bad for these idiots in the slightest. They literally reaped exactly what they sowed. They were throwing trash off the balcony, you tried to get them to stop, and when that didn't work, you had to go to management. And now they're trying to spin the narrative and be like, "Wow, we have a 30-day notice. We never threw anything. We tried to tell you." But seriously, you know the truth. They're just trying to gaslight you. You know for a fact, and you saw with your own eyes, that they threw trash off the balcony. And all that trash is also landing on your property. Like, you have physical evidence to say, yes, they were throwing stuff around. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Because in my opinion, those neighbors got exactly what they deserved. My entitled ex cheats on me and ruins our marriage, as well as refuses to pay any child support towards me or the kids. So I decide to get some revenge by forcing him to give me a portion of his retirement account. And honestly, with all things considered, my ex absolutely deserves this. Here's what happened. So when our first child was born, my ex forced me to quit my job. And when our second child was 2 years old, I found out about his affair. By then, he was extremely verbally, emotionally, and sometimes physically awful. And when he tried that with our firstborn, I put him out. And that was in 2012. I couldn't afford daycare and I had no family support. He refused to give me any money to take care of the kids, saying to me that the courts haven't ordered him to give me a dime. He lied to the bank and had my accounts frozen, and even freaked out on me when I filed for default in the divorce. The judge finally ordered him to pay child and spousal support 6 months after I kicked him out, forcing him to pay $2,562 a month. Well, he refused to pay it until the garnishment kicked in, and by then he was $6,000 behind in support. So I used that to get permission to move away. I remarried a year after the divorce, and I checked the court documents, and there was a little box that said spousal support stopped upon remarriage if the box was checked, but it wasn't checked, so I figured I was good. Instead of filing for his retirement, I just took that year of spousal support and then I left it alone. In 2017, he filed for sole custody of the kids out of nowhere, and that was when he found out I had remarried and he had paid spousal support to me during the first year of my marriage. I told him I took that money instead of filing for my share of his retirement. I said that if he let me keep that money, I wouldn't file to split his 401k. Well, he demanded that I repay the spousal support, and the judge ordered me to repay it, but increased the child support and deducted the repayment from that. So it ended up that I got an extra $20 a month, and he repaid himself. He then dropped his bid for custody in exchange for 2 extra weeks in the summer. Well, I pursued the retirement account split, and he refused to cooperate and dragged it out for 4 years. It was so bad that they sanctioned him, and he had to pay me $600 a month for a year, in addition to the child support. And in addition, they charged him with contempt. In January of 2021, he proposed to his girlfriend, and in May of 2021, I finally got the disbursement from his 401k. I won't say how much it was, but it was about 4 times the amount of the spousal support overpayment. I had no idea it would be that much. I had thought it would be around $12,000, which is why I thought keeping that year of spousal support and not filing for his retirement account was a fair trade. Had he not tried to take the kids away from me, I never would have filed to split the account. So you know what? If you're gonna play stupid games, you're gonna win stupid prizes. His fiance emailed me recently and told me it is my fault that he won't marry her because I cleaned out his retirement account. She said I shouldn't have stolen his money, but I told her that I gave him the option to let me keep that year of spousal support or take it back and I could file for his retirement. So in reality, he's the one that chose this. I told her that if he really wanted to marry her and protect his assets, they could get a prenup so he wouldn't have to worry about it. But she said that she shouldn't have to sign a prenup because apparently I robbed him. Now, I never asked to be financially dependent on him. He
clearly indicated that he wanted a court order to take care of his kids, so I got him one. I tried to be fair and take the lesser amount by taking the spousal support and by not filing for his retirement, but he literally wouldn't let me do that. So in summary, my ex refused to pay me until support orders dropped, refused to pay until they revoked his license, and actually tried to get me in trouble for accepting spousal support overpayment, and in the end, it cost him a lot of money out of his 401k. Yeah, the ex in this story is a complete idiot. If they had just listened to the original poster, he could have lived his entire life without having to split up his retirement. Like for starters, this guy started off on a bad foot after he cheated on the original poster and then tried to skate around helping pay for the kids and make sure they're taken care of. Like that is so unfair, and it shows how much of a scumbag this guy really is. I mean, it really seems like this guy went out of his way to try and ruin this person's life. But also the fact that he tried to be like, oh yeah, I want sole custody of my kids. Like this guy absolutely had this coming to him. Because the way he's treated the original poster, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for inviting my mom and her husband to my graduation, as well as not telling them that I changed my name? Because after they found out, they were furious with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I moved out of my mom's house and into my grandparents' house 5 months ago, which was 2 days after I turned 18. I also changed my last name after the move, which is not something I mentioned to either my mom or her husband until now. The reason for changing my last name is that they changed it first. I had my dad's last name, but when my mom remarried her husband when I was 7, they changed mine to go along with theirs. But I never wanted to have his last name, and I even told them that. But mom told me that it was so important that we all have the same last name, mostly so her husband would feel like we truly became a family, but also so he could claim me more easily and pick me up from school or dance classes, or just take me someplace and not be questioned on who he was to me. I will always see it as his trying to claim me. He said it so many times that I was his daughter and I was his kid, and just a lot of stuff of that nature. It got so annoying, and I never even wanted to be his kid. I never claimed him back, and I have always rejected the idea that he's any kind of parent to me. I hate how territorial he is. I hate how he would lose his temper with people who'd know me as dad's kid, or even mention that I was Jay's daughter and claim me as his own instead. I told him and my mom how much I hated it, but he told me he was feeding me and raising me and loving me, and that entitled him to be recognized as my dad. My dad passed away when I was 5 years old, so that's why I wanted to still be his kid. He didn't abandon me or walk out. He loved me, and he passed away because of a stupid allergic reaction that left me without the most important guy in my life. My mom always defended her husband and told me I should show more appreciation for him because he could leave us, and would I really want that in the first place? Well, I said yes a few times, and she just flipped out so hard. Sometimes I think my mom wanted to send me off to some boarding school just so I couldn't ruin her marriage. And I know they looked into it, but they would never give me to my paternal family because they still wanted to claim me as theirs. Well, all of this led to an awful relationship and me moving out as soon as I could, which then led to me changing my last name back and never telling them. But I decided they could see me graduate and find out then. But the thing is, they got an email from the school with my full name on it for the tickets to my graduation, and they were furious that I invited them but didn't tell them. They said I was trying to make a fool out of them. My mom's husband told me that I would have left them clueless as I publicly disowned them. I told them I was doing that for years and he never accepted it. And that's when he told me I was so thoughtless and petty. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it sounds like your mom and her husband really did not listen to you growing up. Like, you really did make it very clear to these people that you did not want to change your name. You wanted to keep that connection to your dad, and you completely rejected your mom's husband and his insistence on claiming you as his own. Like, that's super obnoxious, and I seriously don't blame you for being so upset. So you know what? If they don't want to show up to graduation, then fine, don't show up. But in my opinion, you have every right to change your name if that's what you want to do. My entitled mom borrowed $11,000 from me and now is refusing to pay me back as she feels she's entitled to it all because she raised me. And I'm honestly at such a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to live with my mom and dad who adopted me at birth. My dad always said I would inherit our family home after they both passed away, and unfortunately, my father passed away unexpectedly in 2021, and we had been struggling to keep up with the bills ever since then. I got into a car accident in late 2022,
2022 and ended up getting a settlement check for it in June of 2023. I loaned my mom a total of $11,000 for repairs to the house and bills to catch up on. I told her if we ended up selling the house and moving out together, she could keep a majority of the money since we would be living together. But I never agreed to let her keep it if we moved out separately since I would need the income. Since that conversation, I moved in with my boyfriend and she was staying at the house. She ended up having a stroke in October and sold the house I was supposed to inherit and moved in with her new fiance. She's given me $4,000 back since then. Plus, her fiance paid for a couple of car maintenance and repairs, so I've also deducted that from the money that she's owed me. However, she refuses to pay back the last $5,900 as she feels like I owe her this since she raised me. Now, I desperately need that money since I've gone back to school and I need to quit my job to focus on my studies and my health. I only have 4 months until I'm done with my classes and I can get my new job in my career. She was the one that chose to adopt me. I didn't ask for it. I don't owe her anything for raising me. I mean, that's her job as a mother. She also always tells me about how she has money and she's gonna use it if she wants to buy a new car, and how she went to Cancun for vacation and then she went gambling in Vegas. I honestly don't know what to do. How do I ask for the rest of the money? How do I leave on good terms with her if that's even possible? What should I do? Wow, I can't imagine having that much money loaned out only for someone to be like, I'm gonna keep it because I raised you. This is payment for me raising you all those years. Like, lady, what are you talking about? This was a loan. This means you have to pay me back. Like, if she's really that unwilling to pay back that money, then if I was in your shoes, I might have to look for like representation of some kind. That's a lot of money to go missing and not get back, all because she thinks she's entitled to it. Now, I don't know how well that's gonna go, because according to the original poster, they don't have any sort of paper trail. All of their communication was literally verbal, and that is like such a bad idea. Like, seriously, you mean to tell me there's nothing written down that says, yes, I'm gonna give you back this money? Like, that amount of money is way too much for some kind of verbal confirmation between the two of you. So hopefully this can all work out for you, because your mom has put you in an awful situation, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Tonight at my restaurant job, we had to call the cops on some customers after they wanted to fight me and my coworkers out in the parking lot, all because they were so dissatisfied with our customer service. Here's what happened. Okay, so we had to call the cops again at my restaurant, and this is the second or third time in the last 2 months. And this is because my table not only walked out, but also said some disturbing remarks and came back banging on the doors and windows to come back inside. So for starters, we close at 10 o'clock p.m. and an 8-top came in at 9:30 p.m. We're a corporate company, so they seat until 10 o'clock p.m. And sadly, there is no last call. First thing that happened was they never got one of their appetizers. It was simply never made, so I just had it taken off the bill and gave them the same appetizer to go for free to make amends. The next thing that happened was one of the guys at the table wanted a combo, but we didn't have one of the items, which I didn't know about until I went to ring it in. I completely forgot to tell him to get a replacement from him since I had a full section and was also trying to clean in between taking tables. So I didn't remember until I was already taking the food out. So I apologized to him and offered replacements, but he wasn't having it. Instead, he wanted a manager. Well, my manager came out and I don't know what happened, but they ended up fussing at her for a little bit, and then she got really upset over that. She took off the guy's meals, even though he did not get charged the combo price. He just got charged the meal that he ate. Once I brought the bill, they asked for the manager again, and she came back to talk to them, and they ended up calling her an awful name, claiming that she was discriminating against them since she didn't give them a bigger discount, and that's when she just lost it in the kitchen. She had a full-on crying meltdown and was just screaming. The table overheard her yelling in the back, so they just started to get up and leave before paying and started cursing me and my coworkers out, calling us awful names, saying that we could meet them outside if we had a problem with the things they were saying. Now, obviously, we didn't do anything, and about a minute later, they came back banging on our doors and windows because they forgot their takeout food in the restaurant. And it was past closing, so legally, we weren't even allowed to let them back in even if we wanted to. Customers that were trying to leave were afraid to leave, all because of how they were acting. So we ended up calling the cops. They sped off once they realized we were calling the cops, of course, and they also said they were calling corporate. But good luck trying to call them when you walked out on the bill and the police have your information, since you gave it to us when we put you on the wait list. It was
was honestly such a messy Sunday overall, and I seriously hope I don't deal with people like that ever again. Wow, these people were seriously entitled. They not only had a really bad attitude the entire time, but then they had the audacity to be like, oh, meet me outside if you don't like the way I'm talking to you. It's like, dude, are you asking me to call the cops? Because that's exactly what I'm gonna do. No one in their right mind is gonna walk out and be like, yeah, I want to deal with this. Like, that's how everybody goes to jail and everybody gets hurt. So overall, I'm so sorry you dealt with that. That really is one of the worst situations to be in, and hopefully that never happens to you ever again. Would I be the jerk if I planned to take away my invitation that I gave to my mother to go on vacation with my family? Because once again, she is possibly backing out on this trip, and it has seriously offended me, and it's left me unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. So I spent $3,000 on a vacation at a resort that is just about 3 hours away. I rented a place large enough to accommodate my mom and my younger brother who lives with her. My brother was looking forward to the trip several weeks ago, and just like a light switch, their attitudes have shifted, and we are 1 week away from leaving. Now, I have 3 older teenagers and a husband who is also going. I called my mom yesterday afternoon, and the excuses just started pouring in. She said to me, I haven't found anyone to take care of my cat. Do you think my daughter will be able to take some friends? Has she talked to her cousin about going? And I'm just thinking, well, no, why would she? She had me on speakerphone, and my brother then said, I'll stay back because I need to work on my RV and I can keep the cat. My mom giggled and said, he doesn't really want to go. So, with a crushed heart, simply because clearly the message I got was that my family and I aren't enough for them, I told her that I need to go and that I would talk to her later. She then texted that she would still be going, and my brothers would stay back to take care of his cat. I responded by saying, don't feel pressure to go. I have spent a lot of time and money on this vacation, and I don't appreciate being treated like it's an option at this point. She then said, you know I'm planning to go or I wouldn't have reserved a golf cart. They did call several times, but I just ignored them. I am used to her rejection and always choosing others and things ahead of me. I don't know why I would expect less from her. She visits the area where my daughter goes to college and never makes an effort to see me. She comes to visit me maybe once a year and I'm like, what, 40 minutes away? My husband thinks that I should tell her to come or not come depending on what she wants to do. However, I no longer want her on this vacation. Her words cause damage and I need space for healing. I love my mom, but the rejection has happened my whole life and I'm seriously ready for some change. What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you would be the jerk at all. You've spent $3,000 on this vacation. You literally have gone out of your way to try and bring your mom and your younger brother along with you, and it sounds like she's not taking it seriously or even wants to go. Like, I know if I spent that much money on a vacation, I would not want to deal with anybody sitting there and being like, oh, I guess I'll go, or even just be wishy-washy in general about the entire thing. But regardless of what you do, I just would not allow this lady to take away from your time on vacation. Like, seriously, this is something you wanted to go to, and you have every right to go on that vacation, whether your mother wants to be there or not. A group of entitled jerks decide to cut in line at a concert venue, despite the fact that the line they had cut in front of had been formed and standing there for well over an hour. So I decided to speak up and put them in their place, demanding that they move to the back of the line. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife and I were waiting outside a concert venue. It was a general admission show to a venue that had a few seats in an elevated area, and then the rest was standing room only. The elevated seats offer an amazing view, but you have to be among the first people admitted to get one. So naturally, we showed up early so we could get a seat in that area. Now, there was a couple in front of us that allowed another couple to join them in line after we had all been waiting for a long time. But I think to myself, okay, not a big deal, no need to get excited. Then another few people show up and jump right in with that group, which really is not cool. But then even more people show up and cut right in. They all seem to know each other, and they just started jumping in line like it was nothing. By this point, about 15 to 20 people had casually jumped in line ahead of us. It was a staggering display of entitlement. All of these people just casually jumped right into a line that had been formed for over an hour like it was no big deal. I try not to let things like that bother me, but my cranky old man power was activated, and I decided to speak up. I told them that we had waited for a long time, and I didn't appreciate their actions or their casual attitude about cutting in line. The original couple tries to tell me that I need to relax, that we're all just one big happy family and all of this garbage, but I wasn't having that nonsense. I told them all their pals needed to get in the back of the line. Well, the couple says I can just move ahead of all of them if I was going to be a jerk about it, and you know what? I was definitely going to be a jerk about it. So my wife and I gladly moved ahead of all all of them. And of course, the rest of the people behind us think that this is a great solution. So at least 20 other people join us ahead of the line cutters. They then griped and called us uncool, but guess what? You're right. I haven't been cool since sometime in the 80s. There was a time when I wouldn't have said anything and just let that happen, but I guess the old uncool me is losing his filter. But at the end of the day, I got a good seat with a good view, so I definitely think that it all worked out in the end. Wow, I don't care who you are, if you cut in line like that, especially at a venue for like a concert or any other like special event, and there were a lot of people who had been waiting there for over an hour, that is such an awful thing to do, and there's like no good excuse for that. Like seriously, just get in the back of the line like everybody else. I mean, why else would everybody be there waiting for a good seat if anyone could just step up and take any spot that they want at any time? That completely destroys the system and like nobody can get anything done. So you know what? Good for you for calling these people out. The fact that they thought this would be okay in the first place speaks volumes to how awful these people are, and I'm so glad that you put those people in their place. My entitled uncle calls me lazy and entitled for taking naps during my lunch break, even going as far as saying he's going to report me to my job because according to him, I'm manipulating the system by not eating my lunch during my lunch break. Here's what happened. Okay, so at a family gathering, we are all making small talk about family, kids, work, or other hobbies, and right at that moment, my entitled uncle, who's only related to me by marriage, overhears me telling my cousin that I love how my work has a covered parking structure so I can jump into my car and take a nap during my hour lunch break and not be sweating up a storm when I go back in. Well, my uncle asked me when do I eat my food, but I nonchalantly responded that I usually eat at my desk when I'm working, or I just snack throughout the day if my calendar is packed with meetings. Well, he immediately responded that I was lazy for sleeping at work during my lunch break because I shouldn't be eating on company time and I should only be focused on work during those hours. He also said, "Oh, you're so entitled for thinking you can manipulate the system like that." He then spouted off how he should call my company to let them know about my actions, and then maybe I'll take my job more serious. So I told him that it's none of his business how I use my lunch break and that no one at my work would care about it because I get all my work done and I get it done well. He then went off on some scripted tirade about how people don't want to work anymore ever since they got their socialist stimulus check. I quickly interrupted with how I made too much to even get a check and then pointed out that he got one as well. So I decided to circle back and ask him, "So please tell me, what did you use your check for?" Well, he immediately doubled down that this generation wouldn't know hard work if it hit us in the face. Now at that point, my cousin said they were going to go out for a smoke and asked me if I wanted to join them. I did just that, but then I decided to leave. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's horrible attitude. Man, I can't stand people who act like this, especially from someone who very obviously is not working. It's so funny to me that this guy literally was like, "Oh yeah, how's your socialist stimulus check?" But in reality, this guy got one as well. Like seriously, this is some insane behavior. And the fact that he also tried to like get you in trouble, all because you said, "Yeah, I take a nap during my lunch break." Like that is so petty and so weird. Why would you come after a family member like that? This is literally just small talk at a family gathering. Who in their right mind would turn on a family member and be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get you in trouble with management"? Like seriously, get a life. Because there was no reason for that guy to make that comment. Am I overreacting for being upset at my friends for doing almost nothing when it comes to my birthday? Because right now I am very hurt, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I know it sounds annoying from the title itself, but please just hear me out. So I'm friends with 6 people, and they're all amazing people too. The thing is, I'm a little bit upset that they didn't do anything for my birthday. Yes, they wished me a happy birthday, at least through messages, and yeah, that was really nice, but that's it. I'd even be really grateful for an appreciation message or a simple card. I'm not asking for extravagant gifts or to spend any money on me, but even then, I didn't get anything else. But for the rest of my friends, everybody's got at least something or some celebration by the other friends. For example, my one friend we will call Sarah got a surprise cake in the middle of our exams. She thought everyone forgot because we're busy with exams, but they still surprised her with a cake. My other friend we will call Katie also got a birthday cake where everybody came. I made handmade cards and gifts for each of their birthdays, and I'm not asking, "Oh, I should also get you something back because I made something for you." No, it's not like that. I made it because I like to, and maybe giving gifts is just not their thing. But then they got a gift later on for Katie too. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm fine with being later as well, but it's now been a month. I probably won't get anything either. I actually pushed this this all behind me, but then another friend's birthday is coming up and they're planning an entire surprise birthday party. They're saying stuff like, oh my god, it's her 18th birthday. It should be really special. But it was my 18th birthday as well. Why didn't I get anything? I just think that I'm a floater friend or something like that. Or maybe they just don't care enough about me as I care about them. Or maybe I'm just overreacting too much. I would love to hear some other thoughts as well, because man, it's been eating me up inside. Like, they're really nice people and friends, and sure, birthdays aren't a big deal, but it is kind of to me. If you can do something for everybody, why did nothing come my way? So am I overreacting in this situation? What should I do? Okay, first of all, I want to say that what you're going through is so unfair. Like, all your other friends in your friend group got all these special things for their birthday, but when yours came around, literally nobody did anything. That really is hurtful, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. And worst of all, it was your 18th birthday, just like this other friend who they're trying to plan a surprise for. That really does just completely suck, and I don't blame you for being upset. Like, how can they not see how valuable of a friend you are? Or even how much work you've put in to be a good friend for them? You've made custom gifts, you've helped out with other birthday parties. Why on earth could they not do something for you instead of just sending a text message? Which, by the way, is the bare minimum that anyone could expect. And I think you have a good head on your shoulders about all of this. You're not expecting some extravagant gift, or even like this massive party, but I don't know, maybe something a little bit more than a hey, happy birthday over text messaging. Like, that really sucks, especially when you consider how big they've celebrated with other friends. So no, I don't think you're overreacting at all, and if anything, this might be a good insight into how they feel about you. I'm sure this is much more nuanced than that, but if my really close friends treated me like this, I would feel absolutely devastated, and I do not think that you deserve that in the slightest. My entitled landlords are facing the consequences of their actions after they refused to fix a leak that was happening on their property. And after all the trouble they've caused me, I'm honestly so glad I got some revenge on these entitled people. Here's what happened. Okay, so about 2 years ago, I moved into a house with my roommates. The landlords, who are a married couple, were really dumb, to say the least, and not just in a stereotypical way. They couldn't get our names right, they didn't care about issues in the house, and would often say things really out of pocket that just made us say, what are you talking about? I didn't really mind because they never came over, but about 6 months in, we had a ceiling leak. I have worked on many houses before as a plumber, and it looked like the leak was coming from the roof. They came over, they cut a hole, decided it was too much of a hassle, and then just disregarded all of my concerns about it. They would come over to change the shower head, change out the floor, and added a water guard, but we all knew what the real problem was. Well, my lease is up next month, and the house was recently deemed uninhabitable by a plumber due to their negligence. I didn't pay them rent last month, and instead, I set up an escrow account where the money was held. I had a check made with the stipulation that I would only release the funds if the leak was fixed. And this is where their entitled mentality came into play. They have shown up every couple of days, walked right into the house, and just started screaming at me about paying rent. I have been very obviously filming them each time that they do, and they just keep putting their foot in their mouth. I have them on tape admitting that they have known about the leak for 10 years, and that apparently I'm the only one who has made a stink about it. I also have them admitting to disturbing asbestos when they cut the ceiling out, admitting to being aware of the black mold in the house, and then saying that they'll patch it up before the next people rent it out. They have said they're going to sue me, they're going to evict me, they've slandered my name to my employer, and much more. And I have all of these on video. The last time they came over, I kid you not, the wife started stomping around my house like a little kid, yelling out that she wants her money right now. But I just sat on the couch videotaping her and quietly informed them that I have all of their confessions on camera. The house is now deemed unrentable, and they know if they take me to court, I have all the evidence that I need. I know that I'm not allowed to withhold my rent in my state, but there's overwhelming evidence of neglect of our lease on their part. Instead of fixing the leak a while ago, they now have to redo the entire upstairs, all with new floors too, by the way, due to an inspector telling them that it wasn't load-bearing. They decided to sell the house at a major loss without receiving any future rentals. And as of last week, I've never seen these people ever again, and I honestly hope I never do in the future. Wow, these are awful landlords. They knew about this leak for years, and they just kicked the can down the road until you came along and said, wait a second, I am not living in this situation. And you know what? I don't blame you in the slightest. There is no reason for you to live in that kind of situation and deal with landlords who act like this. So good for you for getting some revenge, because these entitled jerks absolutely absolutely deserved it.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.